Thank you for coming.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure, truly.
Who are you?
My name is Alexandros Benis. I'm the president and founder of to Kínima to Ethnos, which is a Greek social and political movement, which is really geared towards the English-speaking diaspora.
You have a very large following.
We post a lot of our own articles. We post a lot of our own essays on political topics, religion, things like that. So we have our website, which we host ourselves, or we self-publish articles.
You're 23 years old.
Correct.
How did you manage to not only get involved, but to start your own, not political party, it's not a political party, it's...
Correct. It's easier to say what we're not than to say what we are, because we kind of fill a lot of different gaps in a lot of different spaces. We're not a political party. We don't run for elections. We sort of self-describe as like a social movement or a political movement, simply because of the fact that we're talking about politics. In America, you might describe us as like a think tank, which is basically people who discuss political theory, who self-publish articles, who promote ideas. I'd say that's probably the box that we fit in the most. I don't think something like that really exists in Greece or Cyprus to date, so we're kind of filling an interesting niche right now. But correct, it's not a political party.
When I told to some friends that I'm gonna do a podcast with you, the first question that they made was like, what is diaspora? In my mind, it's like a family tree in different countries.
Yes.
How would you say?
So the most basic definition would be the people of Greek heritage who live outside of the borders of modern Greece. So Greece has historically always been a diasporic people. If you go all the way back to the Mycenaean era, the earliest Greek civilizations, they were colonizing different lands. They had colonies in southern Italy, they had colonies in Egypt, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Cyprus, of course, which was one of the original settlements of Cyprus. And this trend continued to this day. And so if you look throughout history, there's various stages of the diaspora. So you have Alexander the Great, who conquers the known world. He sets up cities. He imports Greeks from modern day Greece and he settles them. And those people stay there. That's why we have Alexandria. That's why we have all of these different cities across the world. And then you have the Roman period, where a similar thing occurs, where you have Greek settlers living all across the Eastern Mediterranean, none of which would be considered Greece today, but at some point they were culturally, linguistically, and ethnically Greek. And then something interesting happens is the Byzantine Empire falls, the Ottoman Turks take over, and then the Greeks truly become scattered throughout the entire world. So that's where you get the emergence of a lot of historic Greek communities like the ones in Austria, the ones in Russia, again, like St. Petersburg and Moscow, which is where a lot of our heroes of the revolution came from. They came from the Russian Empire. And then finally, you have the independence era of Greece. Greece establishes itself as an independent state. And when Greece finally gets its independence, it's only the Peloponnese and the Attican Peninsula. So this is a very small part of Greece. So, and the population-wise, only about 1/3 of the Greeks were citizens of the modern Greek state. And the rest of them could have been considered diaspora, even the ones in Larissa and Epirus, these places which were integrated later. At that time, they would have been considered the Greek diaspora as well. And then as time goes on, you enter the 1900s, and this is where we get the first instantiation of the modern diaspora. So usually because of things like the destruction of World War II and the Civil War, you have a mass exodus of Greeks who leave the country, and Cypriots as well. So that's the 50s, 60s, and 70s. That's the big periods of emigration out of Greece. And so now the most prominent diaspora communities in Australia and the United States, they come from this period of emigration. And then you have maybe the final stage, of course, I'm skipping over things, but the final stage is probably the financial crisis. So the financial crisis hits Greece, and Cyprus, you have 2012, 2013, and then you also get another mass exodus. Now, most of these people were born in Greece, but now they live abroad. Like you said yourself, like you spent a lot of time in Switzerland. That would technically qualify you as diaspora in some way. But as I said, the biggest community and the ones that people tend to associate the word diaspora with are the communities that exist in Anglophone countries. So that's Great Britain, where a lot of Cypriots went, Canada, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, like South Africa. These are like the main hubs of the Greek diaspora outside of Greece today.
And how does Cyprus, but Greece as well, benefits from Greek diaspora? Let's say it didn't exist. How would the Greeks and Cypriots would be less in a less advantageous position?
Well, there's a couple ways I could answer the question. The first one is in an economic sense. Greece and Cyprus benefit quite a bit from investment in tourism from the diaspora. It's actually, I wasn't present for this, but the Prime Minister Mitsotakis a couple of years ago gave a talk to a lot of Greek Americans through AHEPA, which is like a big Greek American fraternal organization. And he was saying that even just in tourism, the average Greek American that comes to Greece, they spend a lot more money and they stay a lot longer than average tourists from the rest of Europe or the rest of the world. And it's because we sort of have a cultural or ethnic solidarity with the people here in Greece. So I think on a very basic level, we're just willing to help them out more. Now that's maybe in an economic sense, which is the actual material benefit of the presence of the diaspora. Maybe a more philosophical question would be, if there is no Greek diaspora, do you have the revolution? I don't think you do, because the original seat of the Philiki Eteria was in Odessa. The revolution started in...
Really?
Yes, correct. Yeah. So the original seat before it was moved to Constantinople, the initial place where the revolution was organized was in the Russian Empire, was in Odessa. And as you may know, Alexandros and the Sacred Band actually started the first days of the fighting in modern-day Romania, which was organized, again, it's organized from abroad. Also, we have a lot of things like our inventors, our philosophers. They exist outside of the borders of modern Greece, or they existed outside of the borders of modern Greece. And so the original pre-Socratic philosophers lived in the now modern-day Turkey. So it's like, it depends on how you want to define it. If you just look at the cutout of modern Greece and you look at it on a map and you say, okay, if everything outside of this box didn't happen, what kind of a world would we live in? Well, I think you miss out on some of the best achievements of the Greek people. And I don't think you get a modern Greece. I don't think you get a lot of the contributions that people have made from abroad. Again, it's ingrained in the history of the Greek people. They've always been diasporic. The Greeks have always been, again, that's why we have this sort of history of trade, this history of maritime advancement, why we still have these big ship-owning families. That actually comes from our identity as a diasporic people. So, yeah.
And actually, there is a pattern. People that live in Greece and Cyprus, and they choose to make a career in England or the States, they thrive.
It's true.
And their mind works differently. Would we have Onassis if he never lived in United States, in Latin America, Uruguay?
Yeah, I don't know if you do. And I think that there's a lot of... It's not that people can't be successful in Greece. There have been many successful people in Greece. There still are many successful people in Greece. But one of the things you have to remember, especially in the modern era, is that when the Greek Revolution happened, the people who organized the state were people from mostly the Peloponnese and from Attica, and those people who came from abroad. And when they created the institutions of the state, it was the poorest, most impoverished part of the Ottoman Empire that finally got its independence. It was a part that was always sort of plagued by war and uprisings and famines and all these sorts of things. So you have to understand that the shortcomings of the Greeks that come in Greece, not all of it, but a lot of it can be attributed to the fact that from its very foundations, the state was organized by the poorest part of Greece. All of the money and all of the wealth was in Constantinople, it was in Asia Minor. And Peloponnese was always the poorest. And so those are the people who actually built the roads, who established the government, who picked the capital, who did all of these things. So Greeks, and again, you hear it all the time, the bureaucracy is impossible to get through, it's impossible to make money, the taxes are horrible. Well, if we want to find an original cause, like a foundational principle by which we have these problems in the modern day, you could start there. So when Greeks go abroad, they do thrive. And that's why the Greeks in the United States specifically, that's where I grew up, so I can tell you, they're incredibly well educated, they're really well accomplished, they're leaders in every field that they engage in. And so why can we replicate this success abroad and we can't replicate it in Greece? Well, I think it has to do a lot with the system that's created.
The adversity maybe, because if you're in Greek and you live in Greece, life is easier.
Yes, it's true.
If you go to United Kingdom, there are way more difficulties and even some bullying if you grew there.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
I want to talk more about you brought me also a gift. It's KT.
Yes.
If I had to tell you to sell it to me, to sell it to someone in order to join it, what are the strong points of
Strong
KT?
points. I would say that Greece is at a political, economic, and social crossroads. Mm-hmm. We have these competing influences. We emerged as a very ruralistic, a very traditionalist state, one that was very socially conservative and one that was really religious. And then because of integration with the United States and Europe, you slowly start to see some of the parts of Greece that we take for granted, some of these cultural aspects, you start to see them erode. And that's how we get to a place where we are today, where people have almost no economic future in Greece. I mean, it's getting a little bit better, but for the most part, we have this massive cost of living crisis. You have a lot of the traditional aspects of Greece, like religiosity, which is lost on the youth. You don't have a very religious younger generation. You have this political crossroads. I mean, are we going to remain aligned with the West, with the United States? Are we going to enter an alliance with Israel? Are we going to turn towards Europe? Or are we going to do something completely opposite to that? And so we're really at a place where the decisions that we make in the next 5 to 10 years are going to affect the next 100 years of Greek history. We're at a very pivotal time. And again, I'm not just talking for the diaspora. I'm not just talking for, the Greek Americans or the English speakers or something like that. I'm talking for all the Greek people. That as a nation, we have a responsibility to come together, to find a center of national unity, to assert our sovereignty, and to rebuild Greece in a way that's actually beneficial for Greek people. And why does that connect to the diaspora? Well, again, we have a big problem with our birth rate. We're not having kids. We're not getting married. We're not starting families. And the older generation is dying off, so the population is going to drop. We have a problem with labor. We need more workers, so that's why they're inviting in a lot of third world migrants to work low-skilled labor jobs. We have a problem where the religion and the faith of the Greek people is not being respected and it's not being passed down to the next generation. Okay, maybe you disagree with these problems, maybe you have a different opinion, or anyone else who's watching this, but my conclusion is that we don't just need a solution which is based inside of the country. We need to have a whole of society, a whole of ethnos solution, which includes the Greeks not only who live in the state, but also the Greeks who live in Cyprus, the Greeks who live in Germany, the Greeks who live in the United States. We need to come together as a group and we need to rebuild this country for real this time.
Upgrade your business. Revolutionize your business. yourtemple.com. Your business has one goal: to take the money from your clients' pockets and move them into your pocket. There is only one way to achieve this: to give real value to your customers. yourtemple.com will help and guide your business on how to revolutionize its selling structure and automate the most difficult parts. They literally have a solution to all of your business problems. Complete the form on their website and you're gonna get a free assessment of your business. yourtemple.com. Attack the problem from its root.
Exactly, yeah.
So in a way, maybe I'm wrong, is KT, do I say it correct? KT,
Yeah.
in a fight against westernization or no?
I think that's a complicated question. So when I talk about westernization, there's a whole other conversation we could have about, is Greece really Western? Are we a part of Western society or are we not? I think, to ease ourselves with the definitions and the terms, we'll call it westernization, but I think that the actual word is probably a lot more complicated than that. What I'm talking about really is the American cultural influence, which has been really pervasive throughout the whole world with music, with culture, with food, with television. It comes at a cost where you see the traditional aspects of Greek society declining in relation to external influences growing. So what do I mean by that? You have like types of music now which are popular in Greece, like trap music, which is certainly not in the Greek musical tradition. You can like it, but you have to admit that it's not really Greek, even if they're saying something in the Greek language. How people dress. I mean, I guess I'm a little bit of a walking contradiction because I'm wearing a suit. You're wearing a t-shirt and pants, but like our traditional aspects of like how we dress is totally not present in society. And it's okay. Do I want everyone walking around in fustanelas? No, like that's not really what I'm saying. But
that would be nice.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. But you just see these aspects of culture that are just getting degraded. And I think that both in Greece and in abroad, we get these sort of pressures where it's like they want to make a cookie cutter version of Greece, which fits easily into all of these boxes. They want to make us a little more consumeristic, more materialistic, more nihilistic, because they want us to just be another nation in the rank and file canon of Western countries, which are just merely borderless economic zones where they don't have any culture, they don't have a language, they don't have a religion, they just buy things. And you see this happening throughout Europe. You see this happening to a country like England, where it doesn't really resemble the England of 100 years ago. You see it in a country like France or in Germany, or not even just in Europe. You see it in Asia, you see it in Japan, you see it in South Korea, where the traditional aspects of their culture are practically non-existent. And I think that's a bad thing. I think we have a wonderful culture that the whole world appreciates, but we here at home and also the diaspora community abroad, they're not preserving it as much as they should. And this does have implications in economics, it does have implications in politics, it does have implications in international relations, and I think all those things are really important. I don't think they should be ignored.
What's your opinion about many politicians nowadays, many Greek and Cypriot politicians, including Phidias, that they're flirting with the Turks? And they want us all to be friends and to be loving partners and want to solve the Cypriot issues and Greek issues with a warm handshake. What's your opinion on that?
I think that it's a total miscalculation, and I think that it's incorrect. And it's not that I harbor some sort of irrational fear or hatred of Turkey or Turkish people, but the active policy of the Turkish state is expansionism. 5 years ago, they ethnically cleansed all of Artsakh and deported and forcefully displaced over 100,000 Armenian Christians.
They're savages, Ottoman Empire.
Totally. And then more recently, they assisted with the deposition of the Assad regime. And no matter what you thought of Assad, his replacement isn't much better, because now we have a jihadist who is a former Al-Qaeda member, which is in charge of protecting the oldest Christian community in the world in Syria. That was orchestrated by the Turkish government. The rebels, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, they were funded and supported by Turkey. And so now when we get pogroms and we get people attacking Christians in the streets, destroying Christian businesses, attacking churches, this is an active policy which is being actively supported by the Turkish government. And obviously we have Cyprus, which has been occupied illegally in the northern half for the last 50-something odd years. Do we want a solution to the Cyprus problem? Yes. Do we think that it's going to be solved with hugs and kisses and handshakes? No, because that's not what the Turkish government wants. So we have a choice. We can either say, no, we're going to assert ourselves, we're going to assert our sovereignty, and we're going to, even if we want to really reach a diplomatic solution, we have to do so through strength. Or if we put out our hand and ask for a handshake with Turkey, and they say, okay, thank you, that's cool, yeah, we're not leaving. Well, then we look like idiots, and then we've degraded our position, and we no longer have sort of a competitive or strategic advantage over Turkey. So do we want to have good relations with them? I mean, sure, they're not going anywhere. It's a country of tens of millions of people. They're not just going to leave and go back to Mongolia. So do we have to interact with them? Yes. But we have to do it while protecting the interests of the Greek state, which to date has not happened.
With authority. With
authority.
Respect to our people. So how would you do it? Let's say you were in the European Parliament or into the Cypriot Parliament, how would you approach the whole situation with the Turks? With diplomacy, with more forceful techniques? What would be your method, if you can think of one?
Yeah, this is another good question. It's sort of a practice in international relations. And I think that the very first thing that Greece has to do is it has to have the means to defend itself. Because diplomacy, without any sort of strength posture behind it, is useless. If you are a cockroach pleading not to be stepped on, well, you don't have any bargaining chips, you don't have any power. So I think that's the first thing, is that Greece needs to be able to defend itself. We can't be reliant on the United States. We can't be reliant on Israel. We can't be reliant on any other country for our own defense. We need to take it seriously. That's number one. Number two, I think this is a place where the diaspora is really important, because we can leverage our diplomatic and political power abroad in order to change legislation. We actually saw this frequently in the United States, where organizations like AHEPA and various other Greek-American organizations would lobby the American government on behalf of the state of Greece. It wasn't the Greek embassy that's going in and doing this diplomacy, although they were involved. It was actually very grassroots. It's coming from just regular Greek Americans who are saying, no, you need to include us in the F-35 program. No, we need to have security guarantees. No, we need to have trade. So like I said, we can't be reliant on the United States, but insofar as the relationship between the United States and Greek Americans is good, we can leverage those connections and we can actually find a more favorable diplomatic solution for Greece. That doesn't only include the United States, that includes anywhere where there are Greek people. We become sort of like national ambassadors, and in the United States and in Australia and Canada and a lot of other countries, we're actually a significant political bloc, and we can actually impact a country's diplomacy. So I think that's another part. We need to create strong alliances, and that's where I think the diaspora is important. But also I think we need to look closer to our historic alliances with countries like, say, for example, Armenia, Serbia, Romania, Cyprus, of course. These are countries which we have had a long-standing military and political cooperation with. And again, there's all this controversy about, is Greece going to enter an alliance with Israel? What are we going to do? That's a whole other topic, which we can talk about if you like. But I think we need to know where our bread is buttered. We need to have reliable allies in the region. And I think that's how we do it. I mean, can we reach a conclusion to the Cyprus problem diplomatically? I don't think the Turks have any desire to do that. I don't think they want to. I think they're perfectly happy staying in northern Cyprus. I don't think they want reintegration of the island. I don't think they want enosis. I don't think they're motivated at all to leave the island. So I think at some point, push is going to come to shove in terms of world events, and Greece is going to have to defend itself militarily. But until then, we should exhaust every possible diplomatic option we have.
In my opinion, Turks do not even know what diplomacy is.
Correct. But they do respond to force. And Greece is a small country, but if we can successfully create some sort of like a international alliance with countries who have disagreements with Turkey, I think that we can assert ourselves in some small way. I mean, remember, the Greek military in the Balkan Wars was significantly smaller than the Turkish army, which was stationed in the Balkans, and we defeated them, and we kicked them out of Europe. And we did the same repeatedly. So I do think there is, if force of arms is the way that we have to go, I think that we can assert ourselves, and we should be able to assert ourselves. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but it's not really up to us. Turkey is a much larger country than us. Turkey has their own diplomatic game that they're playing with all of the Islamic countries in the region. So we just have to be prepared. We have to be vigilant.
I like the way you answer questions. While you answer my question, you simultaneously answer other questions that I have in my mind.
I'm trying my best to be thorough, I suppose.
And I have a lot of questions. So, if I understood correctly, in Greek diaspora is also the Hagioannou family, Polis, Stelios, John Christodoulou. Are all these people considered into the Greek diaspora?
I believe so, yes. I mean, again, if they
know those guys.
I'm familiar with the names. I'm not super familiar with all of their work, but I believe so, yes.
My beliefs are very traditional, very patriarchal, and very conservative. But after an incident, I have a friend that he is gay. And some guys that unfortunately, those guys are also my supporters, they beat him up here in Athens in Greece. And that friend, he called me, he told me the situation, I took care of it. And I got so angry, so I decided, okay, let's see and let's support a bit this group. And I uploaded a video that I said, marriage between gay people and adoption from gay people should become legal, must become legal. Gay people must be able to adopt children, and they must be able to marry between them. In 24 hours, I received like 300 messages. They threaten for my life, they wish me death. So much hate, so much hate. What's your opinion on this topic?
Well, it's really controversial. So we're going to get into it. I consider myself to be very religious. I believe in the traditional family, which is a man, woman, and children.
Patris, θρησκεία, οικογένεια.
Yes, yeah. And I believe in, yes, οικογένεια is a really good word, and I believe that in the traditional sense. Do I believe that the state should be knocking down people's doors, dragging them out into the street, and beating them up and throwing them off buildings? No. But I do believe in supporting traditional marriage. I do believe in supporting traditional families. So this is a controversial issue for many reasons. My take is simple. We do have a certain amount of freedom. People, if two people want to live together, if they want to love each other, whether the church agrees or society agrees, frankly, there's no way to stop two people from living together who love each other. But we have a different question, which is what are going to be the social and cultural impacts of undermining traditional marriage? So we do have to answer that question as well. And I can tell you from my experience abroad exactly what's going to happen, because this is what happened in the United States. In the United States, similar to Greece, at the time that same-sex marriage was legalized, it was really controversial. It's a very heated debate. After the legalization, what began to happen is you started to see a slow move to the left on cultural and social issues. Things became more liberal, things became more libertarian, and slowly we started getting to a point where not only were we allowing traditional marriage, allowing same-sex marriages, but also it began to give way to more and more increasingly radical ideas. So now we're at a place in the United States, and maybe this isn't really in the popular consciousness of Greek people because, Donald Trump won and, he's more of a conservative right-winger. So maybe people assume that the United States is going in a more socially conservative direction, but I don't think that's the case. And I believe that we're at a point in the United States where we have a completely irreligious society, a society where there's an inversion of culture, where there's an inversion of the responsibility between a man and a woman, and there's also an inversion of how we see the individual and how we see the family. And I think that is something that most people would be against, where we get to this very radical, very anarchistic perspective. So there needs to be a balance. We need to have respect for the dignity of every human, as God commands us to do. We have to see Christ in every individual. But we should also have, in my opinion, a society which respects the church gives deference to religion. And there's a balance between those two things. As it relates to state policy, do I agree with same-sex marriage personally? I don't. Do I agree with adoption? I do not. But that's not because I have some irrational hatred or fear of people who live their life like this. On the contrary, it's because I love them, I have respect for them, and I think I see these things through a spiritual lens. I believe that these are people who need to be loved, they need to be protected, but ultimately they need to be guided on the right path towards Christ. And this is maybe a very traditionalist, very religious interpretation of the issue, but this is how I see it. And I can tell you that this is step one in what's going to become a much longer debate about what is a man, what is a woman, can kids become transgender? And you might not see it now, but it's something that's going to happen. It's happened in the United States, and it's going to happen it's happening, and it's going to happen in every Western country. Because this is the logical conclusion of these social issues. This is the logical conclusion of these debates. It's going to reach a point where we question, like, what we question biology, we question science. So this is my way of saying that, like, we need to have respect for the individual, and we shouldn't be beating them up on the street. The state shouldn't be intervening in their lives, but we should also maintain respect for traditional religion. We should also maintain respect for the traditional society which our ancestors built for us.
Mm-hmm. So you, and also Katie, is against marriage between gay people and adoption?
In a word, yes.
In a word, yes. Okay, now I will make you a question which is trap.
Okay.
This question is a trap, I stated. In my world, if I could press a button and all of gay people could become straight, I would press it like that. In my world, if I could create the perfect world. But unfortunately, we live in a no perfect world. There are so many gay people in the world. Even Alexander the Great was sleeping with...
I don't know about that.
Men.
I think that's a historical distortion. I wouldn't agree with that.
I hope so. I hope so. But I keep reading and repeating the same... Anyway, I hope Alexander the Great was a straight man. But if you could choose, as an ethical person, as a Christian, as a spiritual person, if you could choose for a child to be left into an orphanage, because there are so many. There are two options. A child will remain there, or a gay couple will adopt it. And before they adopt it, they go through a very strict screening process. They have to be actually rich, they have to be in a good mental state, in a good physiological. They must be the perfect parents, even if they're gay. The screening process is very, very strict. So if you had to choose, would you let the child stay in the orphanage or be adopted from the gay couple?
That's a tough question. It's a very tough question. It's a good trap. I like that. Again, I think that both options would be incomplete. Because, in my opinion, a child needs its father and its mother. And so by leaving it in an orphanage, you're removing it from its father and its mother. And by giving it to a same-sex married couple, you'd also be depriving it of its father and its mother. So again, from a spiritual perspective and from a political perspective, you have to ask yourself what's going to be in the best interest of the child. Mm-hmm. It's a tough question. It's hard to say. I don't know. I don't even know if I can answer it without creating a sound clip, which will destroy my reputation. And you know what? I would just say this. I would want people to find parents that love them, and I want a child to have a regular home life. I mean, no one wants to leave kids in orphanages, but you do have to ask yourself, what are going to be the long-term consequences of this? Not only for the child, but also for society and also for people as a whole. So honestly, you know what? I have to punt on this one. I don't think that that's a question that I could answer with honestly. But I would maintain the position that a child needs its mother and its father, and we have to figure out a way to make that happen.
What was the exact moment in your life that you decided that I want to start KT, and what maybe stopped you or limited you from starting it?
So I don't know how far back to go. I'll start sort of in the middle of the story because that's just the way it can be most concise. I met my girlfriend in college. She grew up in Greece. She was like everything that I dreamed that a girl could be, especially as a Greek American, because it wasn't obviously I loved her and we got along great, but there was also I felt like at home with her, and I felt like she complemented not only my personality but also my identity really well. And she exposed me to a lot of the realities of Greek society that I had never anticipated. I had maybe a really distorted view of what Greece was like these days. We like to say that the diaspora vision of Greece is the vision of the Greece that our grandparents left, which is, again, it's like the 60s and 70s. We're talking about the junta years. We're talking about everyone living in the village and stuff like that. And so that's kind of the vision that I had about Greece. So I met her, and I started traveling to Greece a lot more often. I met her family. I went to her village. I spent a lot of time in Athens, which I hadn't really done previously. And I started seeing, this was maybe 3 years ago, I started seeing just how much of a gap there was in terms of my vision of the country and what it was actually like. And it started to radicalize me. It started to concern me. It's like, you're walking around and, again, for example, in Athens, a lot of the parts of Athens no longer have a traditional Athenian character because a place like Omonia has almost no Greeks. And you go there and, as someone who imagines Greece as like a paradise, you're like, what the hell is going on here? And then you meet with the kids and then you see like what their priorities are and what their lifestyle is like. And you're like, wait a second, like these kids are just trying to be like American. They want to wear like sweatsuits and go to the club and, get drunk and sleep with girls and stuff like that. And I'm like, you know what? Like that's not how I thought it would be at all. I thought everyone was going to be like going to church. And I know maybe to a Greek person...
Philosophy, Socrates.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe to a Greek person it sounds ridiculous, but like this is what I thought. And again, I don't want to sound too out of touch. And I don't want to sound like I'm asking Greece to turn back the clock like 100 years, like throw away our phones and go back to the Chorio. But what I am saying is that there are going to be some long-term consequences for our children and our grandchildren if we lose some of these aspects of Greek society and if Greece turns in the wrong direction politically. And so I said, okay, well, who else is going to do something but me? And I realized that there was a common consensus among Greek Americans and other people in the diaspora that these are serious problems in Greece. And I sort of realized that there would be a lot of support for something like this, for a page like this. And so then I just said, okay, well, I'm just going to start making videos and I'll post it and I'll see how it goes. And the rest is history. So if you're thinking about doing something, just do it. It doesn't matter. Just try it. And if it doesn't work, go do something else.
Before you started the KT movement, can we say? How are you like a man? Now with your knowledge as a 23 years old man, what's the ideal version of a man nowadays?
Ideal version of a man. I think a man should be caring. I think they should be attentive to others. I think they should be strong. I think they should be dynamic. I think they should be energetic. I think they should be religious. And I think they should have interests and hobbies which captivate them. And I think we need to be attentive to the higher things in life. We shouldn't only be worried about, where we're going to go out tonight. I think we need to be a man must dedicate himself to something. He has to have something higher than him that he strives for, that he aspires to.
Did you ever split the bill with your girl?
You know what? No, I never. There's been times when I forgot my wallet and I was like, shit, Maria. But for the most part, we tried to keep it very, very traditional in that sense. And there's actually another thing. I know that it's become controversial, again, and I don't want to self-describe myself as patriarchal, but I do believe in the traditional role of the man and the traditional role of the woman. And I really, and I believe in that not because I have some sort of irrational hatred for women and I don't think that they can do anything and they should just shut the fuck up and cook and clean. No, I don't believe that at all. I love women. I love my girlfriend, I love my mom, and I want what's best for them. And I've worked my ass off, and I don't think that that's something that they should have to do. When I talk about women being in the home, it's not because I know that if my girlfriend had to, she could work, but I don't want her to have to work. I want to be able to provide for her, and I want her to have an easier life than I have. And I want the same thing for my kids eventually, when I have kids. And I want the same thing for my mother, and I want the same thing for all my cousins, and I want the same, and I know it's so funny because I think this opinion just gets so distorted where people assume, because you believe in traditionalism that you must have some aggravation in you, you must be insecure about women, and I never found that to be the case. I think women are great, and I don't think that they should have to bear the burdens that men have to bear in society. And I think that, what I want for them is a better life. And so I know that might be controversial these days, but that's always been my opinion. And that's always why I never wanted to split my check with my girlfriend, and I never wanted to tell her, oh no, I'm sorry, we need the money, you have to go into the workforce, and I never said, oh yeah, sorry, you have to carry the groceries today, you have to open the door for yourself. I always wanted to do those things because because I love her and I want her to have a better life than I have.
Women are like princesses, queens.
So true, so true.
They should just be in the castle and the man works all day and brings in the food. But the majority of people nowadays are uneducated and stupid. And they don't see the obvious stuff, like the largest and most ruthless enemy of women nowadays is feminism.
I think that's true.
It's against women, it's not against men.
Yeah. Well, I think, like I said before, it comes from this place of wanting to distort and invert what a man and a woman is. And like, it's a simple fact. There are biological differences between men and women. Men and women have different temperaments. Men and women have different skills. I could not raise a child as good as a woman could. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't breastfeed them. You know what I mean? It's like a little bit ironic, but that's just the case. And when we start from that simple biological reality, it has to have social and political consequences. And it doesn't imply any sort of like hate or disrespect. It's just like, you know what? We are different. You know, we are made with different body parts. We have different mindsets. We see the world differently. And so therefore, our roles in society ought to be different. I think it's a good thing. I mean, it's a fact of nature, and it's one of God's miracles that men and women have different temperaments and that they have different skills. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think we should embrace those things rather than wanting to reject them and construct a new reality where it's a free-for-all and everyone does their own thing and there's no distinction between people. No, I think that we should embrace these realities and we should try and create a better world for everyone based on those realities.
Unfortunately, masculinity is in its most critical state that has ever been. Many young people in the streets, like 25-year-old guys, 30-year-old guys, 40-year-old guys, they come to me and they're like, Nikos, because in Greece I'm known as a dating coach and I give advice. Nikos, with literal almost tears in their eyes, Nikos, I want a woman, not two, not three women. I want one woman. What should I do? What should I do? And my honest advice is like, speak to them.
Yeah.
Go in a coffee shop.
Yeah.
Hi. One of them will agree. What do you believe is the main reason that men nowadays became so cowards and so into their heads and they're afraid to approach a beautiful lady in the street, in the supermarket and flirt with her? What's the main reason of this?
You know, I can't speak to the social dynamics in Greece because I haven't been here for long enough, and ever since I've been here, I've been dating the same girl. But I can definitely tell you about the United States, and I think that the United States, probably there's some similarities. I think that the first obstacle is that women broadcast, and I don't want to, I'm going to make some generalizations, I apologize, it's just what we have to do to have this conversation, so sorry to the audience. Women broadcast that they feel disrespected when they're approached, and they broadcast to the world that they don't want random men coming up to them at the gym, they don't want random men coming up to them at the bar, they don't want random men coming up to them at the cafe, and they're going to impose some sort of a social cost on you as the man who approaches them by like rejecting you or maybe even potentially embarrassing you in these sort of social settings. And so it created a dynamic where men, like the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The risks outweigh the rewards. You know, as a guy, you're sitting there, you're like, hey, I mean, I'd like to talk to this girl. But you run the risk of her, you know, like taking a video of you and putting it on TikTok and it blows up and everyone thinks you're a creep. And it's just like, if I was a guy that was in the modern dating market, I'd be like, dude, I can't deal with this. I'm going to Alexandros. I'm going to hang out there. Like, I don't, you know, so I feel bad for guys that have to deal with this sort of stuff. And I don't want to blame only women, but I definitely think that they've created, it takes two to tango, so I don't want to, again, I'm making some generalizations. I hope this isn't offensive to too many people, but there's an environment that's been created in dating now where you as a guy, you really can't win. Because what's the best case scenario in the modern era? Like, you get to sleep with her and then what? You never see her again? I don't think that that's really like, that's not something I would want to do if I was in the modern dating market. Because I'm dating to marry, I'm dating to have a wife and kids. I'm not like, you know, I mean, because literally the best case scenario is you can have sex with this girl. The worst case scenario is you get put online, you're like an incel and everyone hates you.
Social ostracism, in a way.
Yeah, and so like, yeah, guys just feel paralyzed. They don't feel like they can play that game. It's like you know, playing video games is just so much easier, you know?
And back in the old days, actually, when a woman rejected you, your life was fucked up because that woman will say to her friends, I rejected that guy. And in your village, there were like 200 women rejected from all of them. But nowadays, it's the perception. So that's what I'm trying to teach to my students, that you want to get rejected because that's what I'm gonna build your character.
I think that's true. I think that men need to be stress tested. You know what I mean?
Have you been stress tested in your life?
Many times. Not necessarily with women. I've only had one girlfriend. I think I got lucky. I hit the jackpot. I've only had one girlfriend. It's the one I'm dating right now. So, but I think I think that men need to be rejected, you know, to know what it's like and to realize that it's not so bad and you can live to fight another day.
So you have one woman, any side chicks?
No, none.
No
Maria,
side chicks.
no side chicks, Maria, no side chicks.
No side chicks, okay. When you come to Greece, you might change your perception. Maria is Greek, right?
Yeah. No, I love my girlfriend. I just think she's great. I think also, you know, there's the joke where it's like, I already deal with enough with one relationship. If I had two, it would be over for me. I couldn't handle it.
Yeah,
one is enough stress. I don't need another.
It's a struggle to have more than one. What do you believe is the main issue that the Greek people in diaspora are facing right now?
I think it's like the identity. I think that's a big issue because, okay, we're doing this conversation in English right now. I have to have a little bit of self-awareness. Like, I don't speak good enough Greek in order to have this type of a conversation in Greek. But something that I'm trying to fix. You know, I'm learning Greek. I'm trying my best, and it's going to take time. And hopefully, I'll reach a good place. But like, I am just one example of hundreds of thousands of young people living abroad, Greek people living abroad, that did not get the language passed down to them. And language, although, you know, you can learn a language, you know, I don't think it's that difficult to, I mean, again, 3 years ago, I didn't speak a single word of Greek, and now I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot. I'm not perfect, but, you know, I'm trying. And so I think the language is a big part of it, and I think as it relates to cultural identity and self-identification. Because my dad, he's not like, he taught me from a young age that I was Greek. He made sure I understood that I'm Greek and that I'm not Greek American, I'm not American, I'm Greek because my blood is Greek.
Do you feel like 100% Greek?
I do, yeah, and I know that maybe it's ironic because I don't speak Greek, but like, as you said, you kind of mentioned like bullying and sort of ostracization earlier in our conversation, and like, I was obviously the odd man out in my friend group. I had friends. I wasn't bullied. I wasn't ostracized. But like, they knew that I wasn't American. They treated me like differently because of that. I mean, it was always like, oh, here's Alex. He's the Greek kid, and that remained a part of my identity and a part of my life up until I was in college. So even though like, you know, I mean, it's not like they would know whether or not I spoke Greek because they were all Americans, but it was obvious to everyone that interacted with me, and I think a lot of Greek people can relate to this, that in America or Australia or Canada or wherever else, if you're not like Anglo-Saxon white, you're an immigrant, you're Greek, you're not like us, you're different. And that's fine. I think it's just a reality. But I think that now this community, which has identified as Greek for so long, we're reaching the second, third, fourth generation children of Greek immigrants who have been there for like, you know, 50, 70, 100 years. And maybe at some point they stop feeling Greek. And maybe at some point they start identifying more with their nationality than with their ethnicity. And I think that that's probably a big issue as well. Like, we do need to preserve the culture. We do need to preserve these sort of ideals. We do need to preserve our language. And I think good things are happening in America, but you know, we just got to make sure we stick with it. you know?
So the identity is the main issue.
I think so. We came to America to make money. Or we left Greece because the opportunities were better elsewhere. We left Greece because, you know, okay, my papu, for example, he was born in Makrichori, which is in Larissa, and he was like a farmer in the village, okay? And then when he retired in the United States, by the time that he died, he was a very well-respected member of his community. He was very successful. He became a landlord and a real estate investor. It's like that opportunity just did not exist for him in Makrichori. So he came to the United States and he made something of himself. And he knew that he was Greek, right? He never forgot his identity. He never forgot his home. So we realized the economic benefits of leaving Greece. We found them, and this is ubiquitous across the diaspora. People who come and they overperform, they outperform their competition, and they're the best, and they're Greeks. So we make money. Okay, well then what happens? You have your kids, and like my father, he's born in the United States, and my grandparents don't teach him Greek on purpose. Even though they both only spoke Greek, they only spoke to him in English because they didn't want him to be bullied. They didn't want him to be seen as the immigrant child. So they refused to teach him Greek, okay? So then you have a big severance right there, where you have a generation that comes to the United States from Greece, expecting that they're going to make money, and then they give birth to their son. Their son is only an English speaker, and he becomes really successful. My father is a lawyer, and he's a very successful lawyer. And then I'm born, and now I'm 3 generations removed from the cultural and linguistic side of being Greek, and I'm born in the United States. So we've done really well for ourselves economically, but we've lost something qualitative. What we gained in quantity, in material, in wealth, we lost in culture. So I'm sort of here trying to correct that, to try and bring myself closer to my roots, to bring myself closer to my identity, to how I self-identify as a Greek person. But yeah, I'm not sure if that makes any sense, but it's sort of like, you know, we made the money, we became respected in our community, but we lost something qualitative and we want it back.
How does your Orthodox faith guides your daily decisions in a practical way?
I think, yeah, it's a good question. You know, in the United States, there's kind of like it was sort of a trope for a long time. It's like a saying, like, what would Jesus do? People would wear these bracelets, say WW, JD, what would Jesus do? And I think it's just about acting with integrity and being the best Christian you can at any given moment. And also in a world and in a culture where Christianity is generally looked down upon. You know, if you're a young person that goes to church, you're sort of seen as outdated or antiquated or like old-fashioned or uneducated. I think, you know, I come into this country and I just want to make everyday decisions with my faith in mind. I want to make everyday decisions with God in mind. It's like, no, I'm not going to go and like cheat on my girlfriend and sleep with a million girls. No, I'm not going to get super drunk and throw up on the street. No, I'm not going to, you know, say things that would compromise myself or my integrity. Like I'm in the United States, you know, being a Greek Orthodox Christian means something. There is like an identity. How do you say this? I'm trying to find the right way to phrase it. There isn't a consequence for your identity, but for identifying as Greek Orthodox Christian. It means that you're someone who has integrity. It means that you're someone who can be trusted. It means that you're someone who's going to be kind to other people. It's not just like, okay, everyone's Greek, everyone's Orthodox, so it's a free-for-all, and it doesn't really matter how you identify religiously, because everyone is in the same boat, so we can just kind of act with freedom and do what we want. That's why you have people who are like, you know, very contradictory. They identify as Christians, but they don't live a Christian lifestyle. Well, in the United States, it doesn't really fly, because in order to be a Christian in the United States, you have to walk the walk and talk the talk. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course.
So that's what I try to do.
And I don't believe that there is a single Christian, real Christian in the world that has evil in his heart.
I agree. I mean, people are complicated. You know, people can make bad decisions, but you know, being a Christian isn't just a formal set of doctrines that you agree with. It's not just like the Nicene Creed. It's how you live your life. It's your temperament. It's your spirit. And so I think that it's important for people who do identify as Christians, who to actually live a Christian lifestyle. And I think that's something we can, as a society, I think we can do better. You know, I think we can be better people. I think we can strive for something greater for ourselves.
If a 20-year-old man, specifically man, from Greece or Cyprus, texted you, I feel lost. What should I do? What's the one harsh truth that we will tell him? What's the
harsh truth that I would tell
and
someone
then
who
the
feels
kind
lost?
of guidance that you will advise him to follow?
I would say that you need to start from square one. You need to totally deconstruct yourself and be prepared to rebuild it. Because people who feel lost, again, it's a generalization, but the people who feel lost, they don't just wake up one day and feel lost. It's a consequence of how you live your life. It's a consequence of the decisions you make. It's a consequence of your interactions with other people. And it's a consequence of your belief system. So if someone said, I literally don't know what to do, I'm totally lost, I have no idea how to live my life, I would say, okay, well then that shows me that you need to start from square one. You have to be prepared to question yourself. You have to be prepared to deconstruct your worldview, deconstruct your beliefs, and go down to the first principle. Like, okay, you say you believe this thing. Why do you believe that thing? Okay, then why do you believe that thing? Why do you believe that thing? Why do you believe that thing? And only when you get to the very first foundational belief and foundational principle can you finally begin to understand yourself and to rebuild the sort of life that you want to live. Okay? So once you sort of do this introspection, this philosophical introspection, like, okay, who am I? What do I believe? What kind of a person am I? And what kind of a person do I want to be? You start there, and then every day you make decisions that make you a better person. Every day you make decisions that push you closer to where you want to be.
Step by step.
Exactly. But a lot of people, they want to pick up right where they left off. They want to say, okay, well, maybe I'm on the wrong track. Well, okay, I'll just I'll do a self-correction, then everything's going to be fine. I don't think it works that way. I think, you're headed on the straight and narrow, you take a right turn. Well, sometimes you can't just take a left to get back. Sometimes you have to go backwards. And when you go backwards, when you have to get to the starting point again and then restart your journey, that's when real growth happens. And that's how someone goes from being lost and being confused to being confident and to being, themselves and to being the kind of person they want to be.
And the self-observation is self-perfection in a way.
Yeah, totally.
Must always look inside. In Greek diaspora, I'm sure there are many very wealthy guys, millionaires, even billionaires.
Totally. Yeah.
Did any of them in the past, or maybe in the future, will get involved with the actual politics of Greece or Cyprus? Let's say maybe a very wealthy guy from Greek diaspora. Could he ever get elected as a Cyprus president, or as a Cypriot president, or as the Greek prime minister? Or there are some rules?
I think it's possible, but I think it's going to be difficult.
Why?
Because I think that if you want to, being like an MEP or an MP is one thing, but if you want to lead the country, you're going to have to convince the country that like you are one of them. You're not just like the rich American who left a couple generations ago and is coming back because he feels like it.
Which is hard.
It's really hard. I do think that there is a blueprint for that though, because like we've had a lot of the previous Greek prime ministers and politicians did study in the United States. A lot of them were involved in American politics. They lived in America for some time. Like a good example is like Papandreou. He studied at Harvard, right? So he didn't grow up in the United States, but he did live some part of his life outside of the country. And again, people respected him, and and he went on to become prime minister. I think if someone were to do that today, the biggest hurdle they'd have to overcome is convincing the average Greek that you see on the street that I'm like you guys, I'm one of you, which is difficult because I don't think a lot of Greeks, I think some of them are really friendly towards the diaspora, but a lot of them have some resentment towards us. I think it's a fact.
They do, actually.
Yeah, and I think that's something that it's just, that's why I think it'd be hard. If they wanted to lead the country as someone who grew up outside of the country, people say you're out of touch. How do you know about our problems? How do you know about who we are? How could you possibly claim to be like a fighter for the people that you never lived amongst? So that's going to be a hard one, and I hope someone can figure it out because that's what I'd like someone to do. It's going to be tough.
That was a question I had in my mind. Why don't all those Greek billionaires that they live abroad try to be elected as presidents? Like, let's say I'm a billionaire and I live in England and I am Cypriot or Greek. Why don't I try to become the president of Cyprus? What stops me? But after I had this conversation with many people, I understood that actually Cypriots or Greeks, they do not really like those people.
I think that's true, yeah.
They feel that they are not the same.
Yeah, and to some extent they're correct.
And the language barrier is very important.
Yeah, it is. I mean, again, like I said, we're having this conversation in English right now. So I have some self-awareness about that fact, that it's inhibitive. And I think you're also correct that there's a little bit of resentment between the two communities because my family, my grandparents left Greece in the era following the Civil War in Greece. In between now and then, there have been so many things that have happened in Greece, so many cultural, achievements, so many like political changes that I just haven't been here for. My family hasn't been here for. So it's like, for me, I realize I'm fighting an uphill battle because I have to say I know my bloodline missed out on the last 75 years of Greek history, but I swear I'm like you guys, right? It's like I get that that's hard for some people to accept, and I understand why a Greek would be reticent to put their trust in me or would be reticent to accept me as one of their own because from a very literal sense, Greece progressed culturally when my family wasn't living here. And also the Greek diaspora community had their own sort of progression. So from the time that my grandparents left Greece to now, that's why I felt so out of touch when I came here. That's why I felt so confused. Oh, wait a second. You're telling me not everyone goes to church? You're telling me that people listen to trap music and they eat hamburgers? What the hell? This isn't what I thought it would be like. I mean, there's a reason why there was that disconnect. And I would also, to answer your question very narrowly, if you're a billionaire living abroad, why the hell would you want to deal with Greece's problems? If you're someone who has a multi-million-dollar, multi-billion-dollar business, why would you want to inherit the most corrupt, bureaucratic country in the world and try and fix it after they've just been abused by Europe in the financial crisis? Why would you want to do that when you could just make $1 billion and live in England? I think it's it would come at a great personal cost. Because you would be taking, if you think about it from a business perspective, you'd be taking a dramatically underperforming business and saying just because I love it, I'm going to throw away my life, my comfortable life where I have all this money, and I'm just going to fix it because, I feel like it. I don't think a lot of business-minded people are really interested in doing that sort of thing.
The only reason I believe that someone that is a billionaire will be interested to get into politics and get a high rank place is power. Because it's different to have billions in the bank, and it's different to actually be elected as a prime minister or a president.
That's true. But I find that a lot of the people who are motivated by money aren't necessarily motivated by power. I think that they're separate. And so I think that the sort of person who is, a shipping mogul or something like that, or the type of person who is a billionaire outside of the country, they got there because they were occupied with getting money, not because they were occupied with getting power. So I think that it takes a very specific kind of person who wants both.
Donald Trump.
Exactly. Yeah, Donald, great example. He's the type of person who he got money and then he was like, wait a second, I'm not satisfied by this, I want power.
He wants it all.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, I'm sure there are people like that in the diaspora, but I don't know who they are yet. I don't know where they are, so maybe they'll make themselves known.
What are the richest people in Greek diaspora right now?
The richest people?
Cypriots or Greeks.
I don't have their net worth memorized, but there's definitely some big names out there.
Because I go to Monaco, Monte Carlo, I know that the Hadji Ioannou family live there. They're, I think, the richest Cypriots. Also, another very wealthy is John Christodoulou. You know him?
I've heard of him, yeah. There's a couple of other names I could throw in there. I was just at the Cypriot Diaspora Forum in Limassol, and Theo Pafitis, he was he's a big, e-commerce shopping mogul. I'm trying to remember some other names right now. There are definitely a lot of very wealthy Greek Americans. Have you heard of the Archons?
No.
Okay, so this is interesting. You might find this interesting. So it's the Archons of the Ecumenical Patriarchate. They are supposedly the protectors of the Phanar in Constantinople. In Constantinople.
Is it legit?
It's legit. You can look it up right now. So they are, it's hard to explain, because what they really do is they're like diplomats and like agents of the Fanar who will use their position abroad in the diaspora mostly to try to force the American government to help the Fanar in Constantinople.
How powerful are they?
Well, that's the question. I mean, no one really knows, but the reason I'm bringing them up is because these are like very high net worth individuals. They're usually very wealthy and very successful, and they do it really out of philanthropy to the church. So it's common if you go to any sort of a Greek American event. I think they're also in Canada or Australia, although I'm not sure. But if you go to some of these events, you'll see them there. They have like their patch that they wear in their suit, which signifies that they're an archon. And a lot of them, again, the reason why they're selected or why they do that job is because they do have influence, they do have money, they do have connections in government. And so one of them could theoretically just say, okay, I'm best friends with the congressman in my district. I'm gonna tell him, the congressman presumably won't be Greek, I'm gonna tell this guy that it's really important that he votes in favor of restricting Turkey and not allowing them to get F-35s, right? He'll tell the congressman, okay, well, if you do this, I'll donate a lot of money to your campaign and I'll make sure you get reelected. And so this congressman sort of has a responsibility to support the Greek lobby, to support the Greek people, because his job depends on it. Because, if this guy doesn't get what he wants, this archon, he might donate to somebody else. This is a vast oversimplification. This is how lobbying works in America, and it's also why people in the diaspora, like this is kind of like how they operate. It's not conspiratorial, it's very legitimate, but this is like how it works.
I will try to get in contact with them.
Why not? I mean, if you had their numbers, you could call all of them, and literally all of them are, I don't know if this is correct, but the word on the street is that you have to pay like $100,000 to like be a member.
Okay.
So if that means someone has $100,000 to donate, basically. And again, that might not be true, so don't take my word for it. In fact, I'll revision my statement by saying they really only accept people with influence. They really only allow people who have a lot of money, who can actually help the Fanar materially. You should call them.
I will find their numbers and call all of them. What masculine virtues do you believe a man nowadays should have, and that our generation, for some weird reasons, fights? Like, you seem as a masculine traditional man. What are the most important traits?
You know what? This is one that maybe you've heard before. I think men need to be a little bit disagreeable. Mm-hmm. We have to be willing to say no to people. And we have to be willing to maybe make people upset because of our refusal to do what they want. Because what that shows is it shows that you're independent. It shows that you're your own master. It shows that you don't do what you don't want to do. And sometimes you have to say no to people. And I think we live in a culture where, just globally, where people, they want to be easy to deal with. They don't want to make people mad. They want to go with the flow. They want to please the people around them. But, I think that it's a masculine virtue that people are missing, is you have to be willing to say no. You have to be willing to say no, like, I'm not doing that. It's against my principles. I'm not going to put myself in that position. And if that makes you upset, okay. Doesn't bother me.
You gave me food for thought now, because this agreement is actually one of the most masculine virtues a man can have nowadays. Because the opposite, what creatures on this earth are agreeing with everything? Women. Yeah. Women, you can't tell them anything. Yes. They're women. They're feminine. Okay, our women nowadays, they're all like more masculine.
I think again, like, it's hard to describe, but I think it's something about the temperament of women that makes them a little bit more agreeable than men. They tend to engage in groupthink a lot more. They exist in relation to others. Women, they calculate their own value through how other people see them. Their image of themselves. They calculate their popularity by how other people, view them and how favorable they are. And so I think maybe that's what results in them being a little bit more open to agreeing with things, because they don't want to make other people mad. Because again, like, that's where and this is, again, it's a generalization, but a lot of women, they feel like they have this responsibility to be liked and to be approved of. And so they're willing to do things in order to maintain that sort of approval. Whereas I think men, we're not necessarily motivated by the same things, biologically speaking. We're motivated by our ability to provide. We're motivated by our ability to, be strong and to be dynamic and to be, to be powerful. And so, yeah, I think in that sense, men who are agreeable, they're not fitting the male archetype. And I think that that's something that we should be a little bit more interested in doing.
And actually, for the sake of our conversation, there is a technique. I have a lot of secret manipulative techniques for my students. I will share one here for free. We're going to call it disagreement technique. Okay. I say to my clients and students, when you approach a woman that you like and you groom nicely, you smell nice, you dress nice, if she's single, she's not married, do not accept no. Let's say I go to a lady, I find her beautiful. I like, what's your name? Christina, I am Nikos. I like you, you're beautiful, I like your energy. Tonight, we're going for a drink. She says no. Okay, no, tonight you're busy. Tomorrow, we're going for a drink. No, I can't. When are you free to go for a drink? I cannot. I tell them, persist until she say yes. Or until she starts persist. This technique for me always works. And for my students that actually apply it. Persist. And at some point, if you do it correctly, you will only get yes, because women love this.
I agree. I think women are drawn to men who are assertive, and that's just a general rule. If you're a man and you can assert yourself and you can sort of have a presence in the room, I think they're just going to be naturally drawn to that. And I think it's not just about like the yes, and I think that there's a deeper psychological thing to it, because what you're showing them is that you are somebody you're a man who like gets what you want, and I think in general women like that. They like men who can get what they want. Because imagine like you're in a situation, you go on a date with her, and you had a reservation at a restaurant and they said, oh sorry, no, we're full, even though you have a reservation, you have to fuck off. She wants to be with the guy who's going to say, no, we had a reservation and we want to eat here tonight because you said we could. She doesn't want the guy who's going to be like, okay, like I guess we'll go somewhere else. No, she wants the guy who's going to really stick it to him, and the one who's going to do the best for both of them. I think that's something that, again, as men we have to be dynamic, and we also have to, we want to make our women happy, right? So I think that's what they like, yeah.
Smooth aggressiveness in a way. Do you have any daily habits or maybe even techniques that you do every day that keeps the KT movement active and growing day by day?
I just love talking to people who are interested in what I'm doing, really. So if like my biggest daily habit is to like respond to DMs, respond to comments, try to keep in touch with people, because that's what interests me. That's what keeps me going. I really like having these sorts of conversations, and so I have them as often as I can. If somebody's just in the street and say, oh, that's a cool pin, yeah, what is that? I want to talk to them about it. I'm not gonna say, oh, what, just look it up, whatever, like, because I care about it. So for me, it's about being there, being present, and being responsive. That's probably the biggest.
What's your biggest enemy? Before you answer this, guys, I called him for this podcast 1 hour ago, and he was close by, thank God, and he didn't refuse. This guy came straight away. He was ready for a debate, for everything.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I was happy to do it.
What's the biggest enemy of you and then of your movement?
I think that my own biggest enemy is laziness.
Laziness.
Because it's always, it's always going to be easier to just sit on my phone and scroll reels. It's always going to be easier to play video games. And I can't let myself fall into that, because I feel like I have a bigger mission. I feel like I have a bigger goal. So my own personal enemy is my own sloth. It's my own laziness.
How do you handle all this pressure and responsibility now that you have started this huge movement?
I don't know, man. it's fun. I like it. So I don't feel like I'm deprived of anything. I don't feel like I'm missing out on something. I don't feel pressured because I really love what I'm doing. And I guess that's maybe a piece of advice for people. It's like, do something that you love to do, because you're going to be doing something either way. I would rather do something that I enjoy than do something that's going to make me miserable. You know, and so if you don't like what you do, I would say find something that you do like. Because for me, like if this was a regular job where I had to go in the office and pick up the phone and call people, and I've done that before and I hated it. It sucked. And so I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. I want to do my own thing. I want to do something that makes me happy, you know?
What did you have to sacrifice in order to start successfully and keep growing at KT?
I think you can probably relate because you're a public figure as well. You know, you run the risk of losing out on personal relationships and friendships with people because of politics or things that you say. I think that's really unfortunate, you know, because I'm a fun guy. I'm a nice guy, and I never found that it was productive to eliminate people from my life based on politics or based on opinion. And when you start being open about your politics and open about your personal opinions, you open the door for people to reject you, for people to like slam the door in your face, and for people to say, "Oh no, I don't like you. You know, you're too controversial. You're too this. You're too that." And I think that's probably the biggest social cost. Is that you're standing up for what you believe. You're saying what you think, but the consequence might be that people in your life who you thought were really close to you, they might reject you because they don't agree with what you're saying. You know, and so that's a shame. I never liked that, but life goes on.
Did you have to kick out of your life some people?
I never kicked anyone out of my life necessarily, per se. But you can tell when you're with the guys you used to hang out with, and they're like, "Oh man, there's the guy like the politics guy. Like I don't want to talk. I don't want to be seen with him. I don't want to talk with him." That always bummed me out. It's happened before.
Did you have any friends that were like, "Who do you think you are? You're a 23-year-old guy. You're not a politician. You're like us. Why do you try to pretend you're someone more special than us?" Those people that try to bring you down.
I always try to be pretty self-aware. You know, I try not to pretend like I'm a bigger deal than I am. I always like, getting down with people. I try not to have an air of superiority around me. I want to be friendly. I want to be nice to people. So I never really had that problem per se, where people thought that I had an ego or an attitude, because I really try not to. But I did have people who, in general, they kind of rejected me for that reason. Not because of ego, but just because they're like, "Oh yeah, we don't want to hang out with you anymore, because you're doing this thing and we want to do something else." And that was unfortunate, because there were some people that I really liked and that I really trusted that kind of betrayed me in that way, and that was really unfortunate.
How do you handle hate and the labels extreme, controversial?
I think the first thing is there's a big problem with marketing, right? People have a tendency to market themselves. And honestly, I mean, this isn't a bad thing, but I think you actually do this to some extent as well, where you're really willing to say what's on your mind, and you have a tendency to be controversial. And that's not a bad thing. But I think that, the difference is I'm doing something that, I'm trying to find the right way to phrase this. Basically, in essence, I don't want to market myself as a hateful person, because I'm not. But, there are some people who believe the same things as me, who are hateful people, who are genuinely hateful people. And I think that that's unfortunate. And it's easy, because we have an overlap in politics, to get lumped in with a group of people who might, be unsavory characters. And so I think it's just about, presenting yourself honestly. It's like, I don't have any hatred for people. I don't have any ill will towards people. I really want to live in a better country, and I really want to live in a better world. And if people refuse to see that and instead want to assign labels, well, that's your own problem, because I'm not going to let myself and my mission be dictated by people who disagree with me. I'm not going to let people who would never agree with me in the first place tell me what I am and what I am not. Like, I know who I am. I know what kind of a person I am, and I'm happy with the person that I am, And so I don't feel like I need to get lumped in with these people, or I need to carry the ideological or political baggage of people with whom I don't even know, right? You know what I mean?
It starts from within, in a way.
Yeah, of course. And so it's like I'm my own person, I'm my own man, I know what I believe, and so if someone wants to come at me and call call me evil. It's like I honestly don't care because I'm happy with the kind of person I am.
What did your family have to say when you started publicly to speak about the nation, faith, politics?
They were supportive.
When was that? When did you first start?
Maybe 2 years ago now.
They were supportive.
They're really supportive, yeah. I've always had, I've always been a political person. I've always been really interested in politics. I've always been someone who's not afraid of controversy, and I've always been somebody who's very vocal and outspoken about my beliefs. And this was my whole life. When I was living in the United States, it was the same. And so this was really the natural conclusion of the sort of childhood I had. Because this is kind of, I'm not like a different person on camera than I am off camera. Like, I am who I am. My parents know who I am, and they support me, and they think it's great. And I appreciate them for that. My brothers too. I have 2 brothers who have been really supportive throughout this whole thing, and they helped me quite a bit. I want to remind both my audience and yours is that the diaspora has always been a part of Greece. And almost all of not all of them, but many of our cultural achievements and our political achievements and our military achievements, they happened with people who don't live in the modern borders of Greece. And I think the revolution is a really good example. I think it's probably the best example, because the revolution was almost entirely organized outside of Greece, the modern state, the modern territory that is, and a lot of it outside of the Ottoman Empire as a whole. A lot of the people who gave their money, gave their life, gave their time towards the vision of an independent Greece, they didn't live in Greece. I mean, Kapodistrias lived in Russia, okay? Ypsilantis, the same. We had the seat of the Philiketeria, which was in Odessa. We had members of the Philiketeria, which were in France, in Great Britain, in Austria and Germany, all over Europe. We also had people who were in the Middle East. We had people in modern-day Lebanon who were fighting against the Ottoman Turks in Lebanon, who were Greeks. And people, that's a chapter of our history which is, totally glossed over. So we have been such a big part of Greek history, the diaspora as a whole. And that is what reminds me that not only this is a pertinent political topic, but this is like the lifeblood of the Greek people. This is where we got our independent state from. And that's not to diminish the sacrifices of the Greeks who lived in the modern day borders of Greece, but what it shows is that there is a blueprint, there is a framework for a broad international front with all the Greek people everywhere towards a better country, towards a better future for our people.
Did Kapodistrias actually invented Switzerland?
It's hard to say. I don't know if he invented Switzerland, but if my memory serves me correctly, he had essentially negotiated that Switzerland not be absorbed into other empires and not be partitioned, but rather that they have an independent state.
So he saved them.
In a sense, yeah. That's why he's sort of like the national hero of Switzerland. I believe that after Napoleon had invaded Europe, and I might be wrong on this, so you can fact check me, he had totally reorganized the Germanic states, and I think he created a collection of various international bodies that were then dismantled after Napoleon was defeated by the Russians and the British and the Prussians and so on and so forth. And so I believe it was in the aftermath of the Napoleonic Wars that people were reshaping Europe, and they were trying to figure out, okay, what belongs where? You have all of these microscopic, fiefdoms and kingdoms in Germany. How do we organize them? Because Napoleon had totally disrupted the entire international process in Europe. There was a balance of power. There were certain empires. Napoleon came and crushed everything, said, okay, I'm changing things. And then he's defeated. And so then you have a big power vacuum. And so I think that's the point in which Kapodistrias stepped in and arranged for the Confederation of Switzerland to remain an independent state and to have a democratic governance rather than being partitioned or absorbed or given a foreign king or something like that. And it was really him, and he was sort of the architect behind that.
What illusions do social media sell to people nowadays about patriotism, identity? I believe that social media is the main reason of the increase of the depression in everyone.
I agree, 100%.
What's your opinion? How do social media affect the patriotism? Let's start with
Yeah. Well, I think that for people who aren't aware, there was a lot, prior to Donald Trump winning the election in the United States in 2024, there was a lot of heavy censorship against people who had patriotic opinions. That might surprise some people because I know there's sort of an understanding that America is a very patriotic country. And to an extent that's true, but also in the Biden administration, there was a lot of political persecution, and a lot of people don't know that. And so social media was always the main vehicle for communication about patriotic thought. Because in the United States, a lot of the news media has more of a left-wing spin to it. It's not super right-wing media. And again, I'm talking about in the American context. Maybe compared to Europe, it would be considered more right-wing, but certainly in the United States, on our political compass, traditional media, like the newspapers and the news stations, were always considered to be left-wing. So there was never a platform for patriotism in the United States. So social media inherited a lot of the patriotic opinions. A lot of people also don't know this, but Donald Trump, in his campaign in 2016, the reason why he became popular to a great degree was because of right-wing commenters on 4chan. Are you familiar with 4chan?
No, what's that?
4chan is a text and image board. It was one of the original American social medias, and it was known as a hotbed for racism and political extremism and right-wing stuff like that. That's actually where Donald Trump really got his start. That's where memes about Donald Trump were created, that were disseminated into Facebook, and that's how he got his name out there originally. It was because a lot of people online saw his campaign, which were patriotic, right-wing people, and they basically gave him a bunch of free marketing on social media, and that's how Donald Trump even got his name out there in the primaries in 2016, before the general election against the Democrats, because he's fighting against all the Republicans in the primary. Okay, so you have this era where social media is the representative of the right wing because traditional media doesn't give it a fair shake. It's often very propagandized. And then you have Biden, this intense political persecution and censorship. Okay, and then Donald Trump gets reelected. Elon Musk buys Twitter, renames it X. So now social media is wide open again in terms of political commentary. And then you get this modern resurgence of patriotic, right-wing political content, which is now totally pervasive, dominant over the internet. It's not the only thing on the internet, but I mean, it's there and it's really prominent in a way that it wasn't 10 years ago. Because I remember, because I was on the image boards, I was on Twitter, I was on Instagram. Now people are saying things on Instagram that would have got you banned under Joe Biden. And could have got you sent to jail or have the cops visit your house. I'm not condoning that, but that's just a fact. I mean, that's the way the wind is blowing in terms of social media. And so now social media is the vehicle, and it continues to be the most reliable vehicle for people with patriotic opinions to get their message out there. And that's why I use social media.
Why do you believe there is a surge nowadays, a huge increase from people around the world, and they support so much the far-right movement, far-right political parties in Germany, in France, everywhere? Why do you believe is that? People are tired of immigrants, people are tired of the LGBTQ community.
Yeah, I think that's probably why. I think that it's a response to stimuli because you have a post-World War II political order that's been created in the aftermath of World War II. Because you had Hitler, who was an ultranationalist, who was, racist and anti-Semitic, and he dominates Europe, and then he gets defeated. And then when they reconstruct politics in the West, they basically blacklist and block out positions which are too far to the right, because the assumption is if these ideas gain popularity, then we're going to have another Second World War. I think that's a dubious claim, but that's the justification, is that right-wing politics is forbidden in Greece, in France, in Germany. And now as time is going on, and we're seeing the political consequences of this sort of center-left ubiquity that they've had over the political space and dominance they've had over the political space, we're seeing the kind of world that they wanted to create. One which is very heavy on immigration, one which is very opposed to tradition, traditional marriage, traditional culture, and so on. And simply put, I think people don't like it. I think people prefer there to be a little bit more of a balance. I think people prefer that there are right-wing opinions. And I think immigration is possibly one of the most controversial issues because, like I said, you go to a place in Greece like Omonia and it has lost all of its Greek character. I mean, it doesn't feel like Athens, it feels like Islamabad. And I think that the Greek people who live in Omonia do not want to live in that kind of a country anymore. And I think that is the conclusion of the people in Germany who have been bombarded with immigration. It's the conclusion of the people in France and England and all over Europe and the United States. And again, and I want to emphasize that it has nothing to do with like a hatred or a disgust or even a dislike towards these people, but the fact is that Greece in 80 years will be minority Greek. I don't know about the year exactly, but if current trends continue, Greeks will become a minority in their own country eventually. The United States, the under 35 population, is already majority non-American. The immigrant population outweighs the white Americans. In England, it'll be the same by 2060, 2070. In Germany, the same by 2070. In France, the same. We are having an issue where we are getting dispossessed in our own country. It's just a fact, because if current trends continue and things continue on the scale that they're going, Greeks will become a minority in Greece. Okay? Everywhere it's the same. I think that people, and again, it's not a universal phenomena, because the people who are coming from Pakistan or Bangladesh or India, they will always remain a super majority in their country. Pakistan has, tens of millions of people. India has 1.4 billion. They're never going to become a minority in their country. It's not like they're getting displaced by the white people, so they're coming here. No, they have an unlimited amount of population, a practically unlimited source of labor, and they're coming to our countries. So we have to, live in a multiracial, multi-ethnic society, but they don't have that problem. They're always going to have their home. An Indian or a Pakistani or a Bangladeshi who's working in Greece, or a Syrian or anyone for that matter, and again, this isn't to demonize them, but they can always go home. They can always go back to Islamabad. They can always go back to their village and see their family. Well, what are we going to do? Where's our country? Where do we go home to? And I know because I lived abroad, and every single time I come back to Greece, it's getting less and less Greek, and it's really noticeable. And I think that's a bad thing. I don't think everyone's ever stopped to ask, like, hey, is this a good idea? And I think that when people start to ask themselves that questions, they naturally gravitate towards the political parties which say, hey, this is madness, and we want to live in Greece. I don't want to live in Afghanistan. If I want to live in Afghanistan, I'd go live there. No, we want to keep our people and our culture here, and they can have their country, and we should live in peace and in harmony, and we should love each other, and it should be a mutually beneficial thing. But I don't think that we should be living in a world where the conclusion at the end of the century is that Greeks are an extinct people, or that Greeks do not represent a majority of their homeland.
My prediction, I agree with you, and my prediction, which is scary, and I'm 100% sure about this prediction because I connected it with studies and other experts on the fields. In 200 years from now, 300 years from now, if we continue with the same rate, Greeks and Cypriots, which is the same, will be eliminated completely with the current birth rate. And that's scary.
It's totally true. Yeah, and this is actually another reason why I think the diaspora is important, because it's true. The birth rate is declining a lot. It's a big problem. We're going to lose 10% of our population in the next couple of years because we have a large elderly population, and people our age, of our generation, aren't having kids. Okay, so we need more people in this country. Where should we get those people from? Because the current government and a lot of other political parties are suggesting that the people are just interchangeable economic units. If you don't have enough people here, okay, we'll take some from India, we'll take some from Syria, we'll take some from Afghanistan. Okay, great. So now we have 11 million people again. Okay, yeah, but the problem is that people aren't interchangeable economic units. People are humans. And there's going to be a cultural and a social cost to living in a country which is not homogeneously Greek. And so my suggestion, as someone from the diaspora, is if you want people to come here, You should take the Greek people who live abroad who want to come home. You should take, because we have 10 million people in Greece, what, a million people in Cyprus? Well, there's 5 to 7 million Greeks living outside of the borders of modern day Greece. So any argument in favor of immigration, oh, we need the people, we have a low birth rate, we need workers, whatever. It's like, well, why don't we just get the ones who share our culture, who share our blood, who share our language, who share our religion? Why do we have to get these people who don't resemble us in any way? And again, not to demonize them. It's just a simple question. How should we fill that gap? We should fill them with the people who are like us, who have respect for our society, who want to contribute, not people who just want to work and take money and go home.
If I was the president of Cyprus, I would do the following. I would have kicked out all of the low-quality immigrants that are mainly responsible for stealing, killing, and all this kind of stuff. Find some good funding and get some robots, because I've been in Japan, I've been in South Korea, and I've seen things that if I say that now, no one will believe them.
Yeah, I believe
Get some robots from China, Japan, South Korea, bring them in. Robots cannot make kids, maintain the Greek
character.
Yeah. We solve the problem.
Yeah.
It's easier than we think. We just need some money, of course, because that's expensive.
Well, yeah. No, I think that's what they're doing in South Korea and in Japan, where they do have also a similar birthing crisis, because I think it's because AI and robots, it's a new technology and people don't really quite understand how to use it yet. And again, I'm not like some AI guru or some tech, mastermind, but I will say this. We're stuck in the box of thinking about labor from a human, like physical perspective. We think that, okay, who is going to pick the olives? Okay, well, there's no Greek people anymore because I moved to Athens. There's no people in the village anymore because no one's having kids. Shit, like we need some people to come pick these olives. Well, they just assume, okay, well, we'll just hire 20 Pakistanis to come here and then they'll pick the olives for us. Okay, well, yeah, you could do that and it would probably be cheaper than hiring a Greek person. But again, there's another option where, again, in the United States also, they're incorporating all these technologies for agriculture and farming. So they don't need human laborers anymore for a lot of the tasks that we need to do. It is expensive, but it's also like a reality that, there are going to be alternatives to importing human labor. And I think that we should seriously be considering those, because we know, as demonstrated by the United States and a lot of Western Europe, there is a social cost to immigration. It's not all sunshine and roses and rainbows. There is inter-ethnic conflict. There is economic conflict, because these people who are coming into the country, they're depressing wages. The supply and demand curve works the same for labor as it does for the price of goods. So if you have a higher supply, the price goes down, and demand stays consistent, the price goes down. And the opposite is true. So what we're having is, in the United States, or in Greece even, when you import foreign labor, you're depressing the wages because you're increasing the supply. It's simple economics. Anyone who took economics 101 in college will tell you that that's what's going to happen. But then it happens here, and Greek people are confused, like, oh, there's a cost of living crisis. I wonder why that is. Oh, everything's getting expensive. I wonder why that is. Oh, now I'm getting, the rent has gone up. It's doubled in the past 5 years. And the job market has remained the same. How can that be? Well, yeah, it's simple, because when you add more humans to the equation, when you increase the supply of labor and increase the demand for goods, then you have this nasty intersection where wages are depressed or they remain stagnant and prices go up because aggregate demand is higher.
You spoke also about the economics. Yesterday I got into a taxi. I tried to pay the taxi driver with 10 euros. I tried to pay by my phone, and he said, no, come on guy, it's 10 euros, give me cash. And I was like, first of all, I'm against a cashless society, but you must also always have options and modernize. In South Korea, over the past decade, there is an emerge in a new technology that they pay with their face.
Yeah, but there's a lot of risks with that.
Yes, but this year actually, this company is going public in a few months. That's a good inside information.
Money, guys, money people, listen.
It's going public and it's going to have a great future. But if it comes to Greece, no one is going to use it. Where I'm heading with this?
That's probably true.
Greek culture, unfortunately, and Cypriot culture, we're moving too slow. And we're affected by the Western world only with their negative attributes.
Yeah, that's true.
We don't get their goods. We're always are affected by their poisonous beliefs and systems. What's something you believe the Western world could give to the Greek society? We gave them everything, mathematics, science, art, everything came from Greece. Is there anything you believe that they can give us?
There's maybe a cop-out answer, but I think what we deserve and what we should get is probably like a little bit more respect. I think that there needs to be a little bit more respect for Greek and Cypriot society. Because I think, like as you said, we get a lot of the negative attributes from Western society. We don't get a lot of the positives. And I think it's coupled with really negative stereotypes about Greek and Cypriot people, that we're lazy, that we don't work, that we're crass, that we're rude, like all of these sorts of, the sort of, the Karagiozis mentality.
Karagiozis.
Karagiozis,
yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's like we sort of get this negative stereotype, and I think that it's not based in reality, number one. And I think that it's very damaging for the psyche of the Greek and Cypriot people, because we've been demoralized for so long. We've been told like, oh, your country is nothing. Everything you did was in ancient times. You're not worth shit now. And I think that we're owed a little bit more respect, and I think we deserve a little bit more respect from the West. I mean, what else could they give us in terms of like, I'll say this also to add another answer. In Greece, I noticed that one of the big differences between Greece and the United States is that people are kind of comfortable where they are. They're not used to like being really ambitious and really moving quickly and being like dynamic. And I think in the United States, like as you said, like, you called me, I was like, all right, great, let's do a podcast today. Why not? I don't have anything else going on. Let's do it. I think that this is maybe a more Western mindset. You're going to rise above yourself. You're going to take risks. You're going to make changes.
No ego.
Exactly. I think that Greece could maybe use a little bit of this. I think we need a little bit of the dynamism, you know what I mean?
This Western American mindset, no ego, I will do whatever I have to do until I get what I want to get.
True. And I think that's the thing, is that's just how things move in the United States. And if you're in a race and you're comfortable just walking and smoking a cigarette and drinking a frappe or whatever, like everyone's going to sprint right by you. And I think that's what's happening on a social level in Greece. We're comfortable with where we are. We're not ready for big changes. I think we need to change our mindset a little bit. And I think the West has something to offer in that sense, that we need to be, like I said, we just need to be more dynamic.
And a good open-mindedness.
Agreed.
Over the past 6 months, I have started the podcast, 3 months. I spoke to almost every single politician in Cyprus. And I call them, I'm like, come on my podcast this week. And almost all of them are like, no, Nico, I'm too busy, thank you, invite me please next week, blah, blah, blah. And I know for a fact, because I see these guys in the coffee shop sometimes, in the restaurants, I'm like, my guy, your audience doesn't exist. My audience, my platform is 1,000 times larger than yours. Come to my podcast, speak to your irrelevant audience, and get some movement in your life. And because they have the Cypriot, stupid, stagnant mindset, that they're like, no, I am this political figure, I am powerful, I'm not going to this bad guy, controversial podcast. And on the other hand, you have Donald fucking Trump, that he went to every single podcast in the world.
Yeah.
He did the apprenticeship for 15 years. He had a model agency. That's how you elected president.
No, it's true. I mean, people don't understand. Now it's a little bit different, because now we're dealing with some really difficult issues in the United States with immigration and Iran and Israel. But I mean, Donald Trump was such a figure in 2016. I mean, he was totally enigmatic of like the American spirit. And he was like perfect instantiation of like what it means to be like an ambitious American. Now I think his reputation is totally ruined, frankly. I think that he's made some big mistakes when it comes to dealing with foreign policy and Iran and stuff like that. The energy in 2016 was crazy. I mean, I was in high school in 2016, and I was also in a very left-wing area of the country. The most left-wing area of the country, in Seattle, Washington. I'm not sure if you're familiar. No. It's the most anarchist, communist, leftist region of the entire United States, statistically speaking. Being like the guy who was like, yeah, this is great. Yeah, it's like, it was like an energy that you couldn't really replicate. And now, I didn't vote for Trump in 2020 or 2024. I also wasn't old enough to vote in 2016, so I've never voted for Donald Trump. And now, I mean, it's again, this isn't really the scope of our conversation, but I just have to say that like the Donald Trump presidency has been a huge disappointment for a lot of Americans, which is a shame because we had big expectations. We thought that he was going to bring back when he ran in 2016, the message was bring back American manufacturing. America used to be the industrial capital of the world. Now we don't produce anything. We need to have our businesses producing in America and selling in America. Okay, that was number one. Number two, we need to build a border wall and we need to stop illegal immigration into the country. Okay, that was number two. Number three was we need to disentangle ourselves from these foreign conflicts. We had just been occupying Iraq and Afghanistan for like 20 years. And Americans were tired. We spent billions of dollars, tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars on this occupation. And Donald Trump came in and he said, no, we're gonna fix this country. You people in the Midwest who lost your job because the factory moved to China, I'm gonna bring you your factory back and you're gonna have a job again. You don't have to work at McDonald's or Walmart. You're gonna have a real job. You live in a town in Texas that has turned from 100% Anglo-Saxon to like 90% Mexican, and most of them are illegal immigrants who are working illegally. We're gonna fix that problem. You're not gonna have to be afraid to step out of your house again. Oh, you're a mother whose son is stationed in Iraq in a war that we had no business fighting. We're gonna bring him home. People were crazy about this guy, and he pulled off the biggest political upset in history. And then now there's no immigration restriction. We're in a war in Iran. We're propping up Israel, the United States. And it's like, this is a total departure from what we were promised in 2016.
I thought there is a strong immigration border right now in the States.
So it's complicated. So people aren't crossing the border illegally, but that's only one part of the problem. There's also a big problem of overstayed visas. And you have to understand that under Joe Biden, 10 million people entered the United States illegally. Almost none of them have left. So that's a big problem, is that in just the last 4 years, 10 million people came and none of them are leaving. So even if you don't increase the amount of people that are coming in, you still have a big problem with the people who are already in here illegally.
They keep making kids also.
Exactly. And then if in the United States, once you have a kid, as long as it's born on American soil, that kid gets an American passport, an American citizenship. So that's when you have a problem where you have an illegal mother and father, but you have a child who's a citizen. You can't deport them. So that's why people like pregnant mothers will cross the border just to give birth on American soil. Their kid gets American citizenship, and now she doesn't have to leave anymore. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people have done that.
One of my superpowers is making accurate predictions for the future.
Ooh.
You are 23 years old right now.
It's true.
Do you see yourself maybe in the far future, after 10 years, after 20 years, maybe as a high rank official, or maybe as the Prime Minister of Greece?
I don't know, never say never, but that's a big responsibility. The first things first, I need to get fluent at Greek. Unless I do that, there's no future in politics for me in Greece.
And guys, he speaks Greek.
I can speak some Greek, but like we're talking about big picture, like very dense issues here. It would be impossible for me to have this conversation in Greek, frankly. I'm definitely ambitious. I'm an ambitious person, I think. I don't want to limit myself, but I need to be wise. I need to understand what my shortcomings might be, and I do have some. So I'm ambitious, but I also realize I have some deficiencies as well that need to be corrected before I can say, yeah, this is what I'm doing. Be prepared, So time will tell. I will be patient, and we'll see. Never, like I said, never say never. But right now I'm focused on...
Would you start your own political party?
I don't know. I haven't, definitely not anytime soon. If it was going to happen, it would have to happen in the future. Right now, there's too much political fragmentation in Greece. There's too many voices. There's too many people with parties. I don't think the Greek people need another one. I think right now, my role, the capacity in which I can be the most beneficial for the Greek people is talking openly about the issues and bringing a different perspective. And right now you have, you have like Tsipras who's doing a new party, Karystianou is doing a new party. You have literally, we might get like 10 parties in the Voulie in the next election. I don't feel the need to contribute to that because I think that's one of the biggest things that's holding Greece back is this political fragmentation. I think it's preventing us from doing the things that actually need to be done to make Greece a better country. So as of now, I wouldn't want to contribute to that. But maybe if the space clears up and maybe if there's a real avenue, I would consider it.
I totally agree with that. In Cyprus, it's even worse. In Cyprus, we have a circus now for the upcoming elections. They're clowns. They're clowns, and they want to get into the parliament. For the average viewer that has no political knowledge, what differentiates KTE with a political party?
In terms of structure, like how we're organized, or ideology?
Ideology.
Like I said, I think we're bringing a different perspective. And I think that what people need to know is that I'm not making commentary and I'm not making predictions which are just based off of conjecture. I have seen the consequences of the policies as they are being enacted in Greece since they have already been enacted in the United States, which is where I grew up. I can tell you with confidence exactly what's going to happen with immigration. I can tell you exactly what's going to happen with social issues like same-sex marriage. The reason I can is because we went through this in Greece 10 years, or sorry, not in Greece. We went through this in the United States 10 years ago.
What's going to happen with the same-sex marriage?
I think it's going to continue to spiral and the debate is going to get bigger. It's going to encompass more things and you're going to see a dramatic shift to the left in terms of social issues. Now that gay marriage is protected by law, it's going to open up the debate for the next thing, which is probably going to be, again, adoption, which is what it is right now. And then that debate, which was just, as you know, was just approved, right, in the parliament, or the Supreme Court ruled. The debate has moved to adoption. And then it's going to move to the next thing, and it's going to move to the next thing, and it's going to move to the next thing, until you get to a place where 10 years ago, the moderate position has now become extreme. That's exactly what happened in the United States. So now same-sex marriage in the United States is not in contest at all. It's totally been accepted by both major political parties. It's been accepted by pretty much every candidate for every political office. It's totally been codified in the United States and it will never be undone. And now the debate is not there anymore because now the debate has moved to whether or not children can transition and get surgeries to yeah, but that's just what happened.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's bad. Children should not change any
But that's where we are in the United States because that's where the debate moved and that's how this works. Nothing is static and nothing stops right where it is. And I can tell you the exact same thing with immigration because the first people who came to the United States as Greek immigrants, they didn't come with their families. They came in a similar capacity to the foreign workers who came here. They just came to get money and go home. Okay, well, those people stayed and they brought their families and their families brought their families and they had kids and the community grew and grew and grew. And now you have an America which is going to be majority minority. There's not going to be a majority ethnic group in the United States. I believe that's exactly what's going to happen all across Europe and in Greece. And that's why I think people are afraid of Greece losing its actual cultural character because that is textbook what happened in the United States.
So in a way, you are a time traveler.
And yeah, in some ways I am. Like I said, we went through this 10 years ago in America. I know what's going to happen.
In the United States of America right now, a man can marry a man.
Yeah.
And they can adopt a child comfortably.
Oh yeah. No problem at all. No problem at all.
Fully legal.
Yes.
And now they're debating over if a child can change gender.
Yes. Ooh. And again, because then here's where the conversation moved. I'll tell you specifically. Once we reached a certain threshold with same-sex marriage, then transgenderism was the next thing. Okay? Then people said, okay, well, an adult, just like in the same way that two adults who love each other, if they're both men or if they're both women, they can get married and they can live with themselves. If an adult wishes to have a surgery and to cut off their genitalia and to, have a sex change surgery, Well, in the same reasoning applies. Two people should, or one person should be able to do whatever they want, and the state should not intervene. Okay? And then after that was established, now that's not controversial anymore either. Now the next thing is, okay, well, can a child do that? Can someone who's under the age of 18 who is born a man believes they're a woman, or who is born a woman believes they're a man, are they eligible to get surgery can they consent? And can they consent if their parents disagree? Because there was actually people in Canada, a little girl who was, I think she's under the age of 15. She was like 13. She said that she wanted to be a boy. The parents were divorced. The father tried to intervene and say, no, this is nonsense. The doctors are prescribing her a lot of medicines that are blocking her hormones, so now she can't go through puberty properly. And she was going to get surgery to cut off her genitalia, to cut out her breasts. And he tried to intervene. Do you want to know what happened to him? They put him in jail. The government, the state of Canada, the government put him in jail because he was intervening in her medical affairs as a child, and so he went to jail. And this is not an exception. This is actually just what happens throughout the United States and Canada.
I'm genuinely shocked. Do you believe that there is a possibility, or even worse, a probability for this law of children to be able to change genders, to be approved? Is there a possibility for this law to be approved?
Right now it sounds crazy. And people who were watching this probably won't believe me. But I would have told you the same thing 10 years ago in the United States. I would have said, there's no way. No, this is it. We're happy with this. Like the same-sex marriage is non-controversial. We can all live with that. It's not so big of a deal. But then 10 years went by, and that's where we were. And if you'd asked me, like I said, if you'd asked me 10 years ago in the United States, is that what's going to happen? I would have said, you're crazy. But that's where it went. And I think it's going to repeat itself. And again, that's not, and this is why I want to be so clear. It's not that I have a hatred towards gay people, but it's about like asking ourselves the question, like, what kind of a society do we want to live in? I want to live in a traditional Christian society. And I want to give my kids the similar quality of life that my grandparents had when they grew up in Greece. And I want their life to resemble my grandparents' life. And I want to have all of those immaterial, qualitative things to be able to give to my kids. Because I was deprived of those in the United States. And so were so many other people who were Christians and patriotic and maybe like right-wing, however you want to describe it. And so that's why I said it's not about bringing people down. I don't want to kill them. I don't want to beat them up. No, but I want to live in a Christian society. And I want my kids to be able to live in a Christian society, because there is no opportunity to just sit on the sideline and to just say, everything will work itself out. Because the person who wants to win is always going to beat the person who wants to be left alone. And right now, all the people in Greece who are patriots, they just feel like, I just want to get left alone. I don't want to, become a martyr. I don't want to be put in jail. I don't want to be controversial. I don't want to lose my friends. I just want to be left alone. Okay, well, that's not what the other side is saying. The other side is saying, no, we're going to win. We're going to get what we want. This is how politics works. And this is exactly how it happened in the United States.
Man, you're scared the shit out of me.
I'm sorry. This is just how it is.
Honestly, if my child, male or female, came and told me that I want to change gender, I would have slapped this child so hard so they faint. I would take that child, this kid, take it to an Arabian country and live there forever.
2-3 years Dagestan.
Yeah, 2-3 years. That's not crazy.
No, but
that's madness.
But I mean, imagine not only that. Imagine not that your kid comes and tells you that. Imagine that her doctor, who you trust, is giving her puberty blockers so she can't go through puberty, or him, who he can't go through puberty. And then imagine that if you try to intervene, the government will put you in jail. You will get arrested. I mean, because again, the thing that you just described right there about your, hitting your kid and sending him to like Syria, you would go to jail for that in Canada. Of course you would.
In Cyprus also.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not such a controversial thing. But the reason I'm telling you that is because there are people who had this experience, and what happened to them? They got put in prison. They got sentenced in front of a judge. They banged the gavel. They put them in handcuffs, and they took them into the prison.
So the doctors and society and government has more power over your own children.
Yes, of course. That's also, again, that's another reason why I'm in favor of traditional roles of men and women, because what happened in the United States is that when women entered the workforce, Now, who's going to raise the kids? The government is going to raise the kids because you have to pay for public schooling. You can't homeschool your kids if you have two people working full-time jobs. So the state, as an institution, has more power over what your kids learn and what they believe than you do as their own parents. And that's obviously true in Greece because schools and universities are a center of political thought. People are imposing, these teachers are imposing their political opinions on your kids by choosing what to teach them.
It all starts from education. For example, I'm 100% sure that my children will never, ever be infected with all this LGBTQ bullshit. It all starts from education. If you could redesign the architecture of the education of a young kid from 10 to 20, what would you add and what would you remove from their education?
There's a common saying in the United States that university is supposed to teach you how to think, not what to think. Mm-hmm. They're not supposed to impose a political doctrine on you. They're supposed to give you the tools to question things, to be investigative, to figure out the answers for yourself, to do your own study and to do your own research and to come to your own conclusions. I can't speak for Greece, I never went to school here, but in the United States, that's not the case anymore. It's like the state and the teachers, they tell you what to think. There is a very deep and pervasive infiltration of politics into school. And I guess the question is, if that's what if we're gonna play that game, who can indoctrinate the most kids? Well, then we at the very least, we should indoctrinate them to have respect for their elders, to have respect for their country, to have respect for the church, to have respect for the historical institutions that have governed and guided Greece. We shouldn't teach them that God doesn't exist and atheism is cool and you should join a local gang or whatever. No, we should teach them the right things. If we at the very least, we should just give them the tools to be successful, and we should not be imposing on them. But if someone's going to impose on them, it better be me and not someone who wants to teach my kid to cut off their genitalia. I should be able to have control over that sort of a thing.
Every morning, I enjoy taking a walk here in Athens at 6:30 specifically. Oof. With my three mentors, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. And they all tell me the same thing every single day. Learn how to think correctly. My man Socrates, they killed him.
It's true.
No, he decided to die, to be honest. He had the option to stay alive and to betray his beliefs, but he chose to drink the poison. If Socrates and all those guys didn't make it, didn't succeed, how can we succeed?
This is going to be a controversial answer. The reason why they didn't succeed is because they are people who were satisfied by the ideas alone. Okay? They were very respectable thinkers. They were geniuses. They set the foundation of our modern life and the world in which we live and how we think of things. But because they were these sort of like grand thinkers, they were people who were motivated just by the idea of learning, just by the idea of self-examination and all these sorts of things and learning the secrets of the universe. They weren't interested in power. They believed, but they didn't actualize the union of political thought and political power, or philosophical thought and political power. And again, so if you read the Republic and if you were to talk to them about like, what's your ideal form of government, their ideal form of government is not the government in which they lived. Right? Because if you actually read their political theory, they're talking about the philosopher king and someone who is occupied with the higher things in life, who's intelligent, who's just, who's fair, who's going to govern benevolently. They didn't live in that society, right? So what did they actually do in their lives? Yeah, they were geniuses, they were thinkers, but they weren't actually holding the power. Mm-hmm. And so the people who were holding the power saw that they were dissenting from the common opinion. They thought that they were dissenting from the agreed upon set of opinions, and they put them to death for it. What should they? I mean, again, who am I to question them? They're the greatest thinkers of all time. But it just goes to show that political power actually matters. Mm-hmm. When your enemies hold political power, they will use it to persecute you. They will use it to shut you down. They'll use it to silence you. Although it's nice to talk about theory and to talk about ideas and policies, things get done by the people who are in the right place at the right time, who actually have access to power. So these philosophers, incredibly intelligent, but they weren't actually in control of the society, and that's why the society put them to death.
Tomorrow morning I will tell them about your opinion.
You should let them know.
We are the modern philosophers. We must try to become more like kings, and our kings, the presidents, must try to become more like philosophers, because without political power, you do nothing.
Yeah, it's just ideas,
you
just
get
words.
Killed.
Yeah. So like that's what they believed, and it's all written all over Plato's Republic. Is the ideal form of government is the union of political thought and political power, or philosophy and political power, however you choose to interpret it.
Sometimes in our daily walk, most of the times, to be honest, I teach them about the dating, because their social life is bad.
That's true.
Sometimes Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, how do you say it in English? Seneca join us. Yeah. And they keep telling me, no, Nikos, you must kill your emotions. Emotions in a man are totally wrong. You must be ruthless, cold. Doesn't matter if you're happy, doesn't matter if you're sad. What do you believe in that? Do you believe that emotions are helpful in a man's strive for success and excellence?
I do, actually. I do think that they're important. And I think that your emotions should not get the better of you. That's an important distinction. They should not control your actions. You should govern yourself with your right mind. You shouldn't govern yourself with your emotions. But they are good. They give you an insight into something. It's your emotions. If you're into psychology, you know there's a debate over whether or not your emotions are they just chemical responses to stress. Do we feel these things implicitly? Are they voluntary? You know, how do our emotions actually impact us? Like, what do they mean? And I'd say probably the best answer that I've heard is that your emotions are in a way that your body telling you something. You know, being sad isn't just the feeling in your brain of you being sad. I mean, your heart rate might decrease, your blood pressure might decrease. You know, there are actual physical responses to your emotions that shows you that there's a biological purpose for these emotions. You know, when you get stressed, your heart rate increases, your blood pressure increases, you get edgy, you get antsy. That's a physiological response to an emotion. So I think that's your body telling you something. There's something in your biological or genetic code that's telling you that, like, okay, this is a problem. I'm going to stress you out to show you that you need to solve the problem. So are emotions, like, should your emotions get the better of you? No, but like that's a piece of data that you can use in order to answer a question that you might have, or to guide you in a good direction.
So in a way, your more pure interpretation of the usefulness of emotions is like, it's the most basic and true version of the truth that hides inside you. When you feel an emotion, it's like telling you what you're doing wrong and what you're doing right.
It's like a data point. Think of it like a piece of a puzzle,
okay.
Right? So, you know, okay. So I can interpret things through sense data, right? If there's a problem in my life, let's say I'm getting chased by a bear. Okay, I can smell the bear. I can see the bear. If it scratches me, I can feel the pain. But what's going to happen? When I see that bear, I'm going to get stressed out. That's an emotion. I'm going to get stressed out. I'm going to get scared. It's going to jack up all of my internals. My heart rate's going to increase. My blood pressure's going to increase. And I'm going to run away from the bear, right? So it's like, okay, seeing the bear is one thing. Feeling the emotion of stress or of fear is what's going to cause you to take action. Because if you see a bear in a zoo, you're not going to feel that same fear, even though you still might get the same sense data. You still might smell the bear, you still might see the bear, you still might hear it growling and roaring, but your emotions are going to tell you, and you're also with your rational mind is going to tell you, well, that bear is behind a cage. You have no reason to be afraid of the bear, therefore you don't need to run. Let's say you're going on a hike in the woods, and the bear jumps out and starts chasing you, well, it's going to give you an emotional response, which is going to have a physiological impact, which is going to affect your decision making. Then that's when you break into flight, like fight or flight. That's when you might run away from the bear and try to escape, right? So it's like, okay, seeing the bear is one thing, but the difference between seeing a bear in the zoo and seeing a bear in the forest is actually what your emotions are telling you about the bear.
Angry, when you're confronted with a grizzly bear, being stoic is not helpful, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it would help you in some sense. But if you were just like, oh, I'm stressed, that clearly doesn't matter. I'm going to ignore that emotion. No, you should be stressed. You should start running probably. So
the emotions are. Which Greek figure, ancient or modern, do you admire and do you relate maybe in a way?
I have a special fondness for a lot of the like heroes of the revolution. For like someone like Kapodistrias, because he engineered a lot of the support from the great powers, which was really the deciding factor. He was the one that helped organize the resources that were actually required to do the revolution. I have a great amount of respect for him, but if you really want to know, I think Alexander the Great. I think it has to be, because I think he's someone who was so ambitious, who knew that he was destined for greater things, who wouldn't be satisfied with being the king of a moderately sized kingdom, maybe a regional power. No, he wanted to conquer the world, and he did conquer the world. He conquered, the biggest empire at the time. It's like being like a kid. You're young, you're energetic, and there's like a bully in your neighborhood who's like beating everyone up. He's the strongest, he's the biggest, and you go up to him and you just beat the shit out of him. It's like that, and then now you're in charge. Now you run everything. So I don't know if that's a good analogy, but it's like he was an upstart. He was someone who should not have won so many battles. He shouldn't have been these people, but he was literally one of the most impactful and influential figures in all of history.
Most prominent figures. That was another trap question, because in my mind I had three names actually. One, Kapodistrias. Second was Socrates, and the other one was Alexander. If he says Alexander, for sure, if he continues on this trajectory, he's going for a prime minister of Greece sometime in the future.
Well, we'll see.
So yes, that was.
Never say never. Never say never.
What's your most unpopular belief about the Greeks' future that you think you will be proven right?
I think it's going to be the consequences of the social and cultural upheaval, and I think it's going to be the consequences of immigration. I think people would rather not believe what I'm saying. I think people would rather believe that everything's fine, nothing's wrong, we can just live our daily lives and we'll make money and everyone will be happy. I think probably that's what people don't want to hear, is that our country and the way we think of our country it will be extinct. It'll be a memory. It'll be just a vision of the past if we don't actually do something about it. Then again, I don't hate immigrants. I don't hate gay people. In fact, it's my love for them and it's my desire to give them a better life and have a better society for them, which informs my opinions about it. And I think that's maybe a perspective that people don't get, because people are they think that they're in a battle and they need to argue and they need to fight and they need to, put them in their place and teach them, what they're doing is wrong. And I think, Christ calls us to love people and to respect their dignity. And I think that's what sets me apart from maybe the average right-winger, the average patriot, or the average, nationalist even, however you want to say it. I think if you actually spend time with these people, as you have, they're not the devil, they're not, the villain, but maybe they're misguided. And maybe they need our help, maybe they need our love, maybe they need our support. And then on a social level, what are the second and third order consequences of these people, of their decisions that they make? It's, they do have an impact on the health of society as a whole. And so that's why I think that these are important. I don't think that they're just arbitrary disagreements that people have. I think that they're going to have a big impact on Greek society. I think they're going to have a big impact on our children's life and their children's lives. And I think probably the other thing that I want to say is that I think the Greek people are very prideful people. We're very proud. Mm-hmm. I think that's definitely true.
We conquer the world.
Yeah, it's true. We have some reasons to be proud of ourselves, but I think that also the Greek people need a little bit of humility too. I think we need to realize that the world that we live in, we since World War II, okay, and the Civil War in Greece has had a period of relative peace, okay, which has not been interrupted. So we've had our opportunity to build up the country, to make money, to sit on our islands and have fun. We didn't really have any more territorial acquisitions after World War World War II. That kind of ended the expansion of Greece as a modern state. Obviously, in 1974, there was the Cyprus question, which ended up, we never joined Greece and Cyprus. And so I think that the Greek people need to, we all need to humble ourselves a little bit and realize that there's a lot of work for us to do if we want to actually live in a country that works, if we want to live in a successful country. So yeah, I think that's probably the other maybe hot take or controversial opinion, is that the Greek people are, I think we're all, myself included, I think we're all missing a little bit of humility.
And currently, we're losing.
Yeah,
Totally.
it's true.
Greeks
It's true.
and Cypriots.
Yeah, I think it's a fact. I mean, okay, my girlfriend, she's from Milos, and her and I, we want to get married. Let's say we want to buy a house. And now I have to compete for a house with every billionaire and millionaire in Europe who wants a summer home. So now me and pretty much every other Greek person in this country, and the Cypriots, probably worse in Cyprus, frankly, because you have the tax benefits of having a home there, we are totally locked out of the housing market. The only way that most people our age are going to get a property is if our grandparents die and give us some. Or if we just happen to be someone who has a really successful business and we can actually go toe-to-toe with these people. We have a huge inflation in the housing market, which is boxing people out. And that has downstream effects on the birth rate, because now people can't afford a home. Who wants to raise a kid in a 20 square meter apartment in Athens? Nobody. These problems are going to compound, and they're going to compound, and they're going to compound. And I think that the only reason why people aren't a little bit more worried about this is because the countries where this is the most pronounced, where the impact of these sorts of policies has actually been demonstrated, is places like the United States or Western Europe. And the propaganda and sort of the media image of the United States has been that everything is great. Everyone is wealthy. Everyone has money. Everyone has a good job. You go there, you're going to make money, you're going to be happy. Well, that's just not true anymore. And soon the reputation is going to catch up to America. And I think people in Greece, hopefully it's not too late, but I hope that people see that, again, all of the policies that are being tried in Greece right now, these are the exact same policies they've tried in America, and the consequences in America have not been good. I don't want that to happen to Greece.
The only way nowadays to become rich is to coming from a rich family, or to have attention on social media. Those are the only two ways in order to become rich. Either to have daddy's money or to get attention on social media.
I'm not familiar with your family history, but I assume that you didn't grow up in a
I come
billionaire
from a poor
family.
family.
Yeah. So imagine that you didn't have your online following and you were working as a barista making coffees in Athens. How many coffees do you have to make before you can afford a house? You'd probably be living with your mother right now, or something like that. And I'm not, sorry, it's not meant to be disrespectful, because I know you're a smart guy and you figured it out for yourself, obviously. But there's a million people like us in this country. There's a million young people who are just working day in and day out, and they just don't see a future here, and that's why they leave.
I consider you as a leader from Greek diaspora.
Thank you.
One of the leaders.
That's honor. Yeah.
Traveling around the world and teaching people about your beliefs around the world, what has taught you about real leadership?
About leadership, I would say it comes down to being present and actually listening and listening to what people are telling you. I think it's knowing that you don't know everything, knowing that you have a lot to learn, and being willing to talk with other people who might disagree with you, people who might have a different perspective, because I think you can learn something from them. And I think true leadership, it's not just putting on the face and talking to a crowd and, thinking that everything's fine and, getting followers and likes and clicks or whatever. It's about your character. And I think people will respect you and people will appreciate you and people will follow you if they feel that you actually care about them. If they feel that you want what's best for them, if they feel that you're listening to them. So I think that's probably the most important thing.
You have fear in your life, fear of failing, fear of people understanding you wrongly. How do you deal with fear? Fear of death, maybe, fear of your mortality. How do you deal with your fear?
Probably the thing that I'm afraid of the most is being misrepresented. Because like I said, I might have a certain amount of ideological overlap with people who are considered, evil, racist, fascist, Nazi, whatever. And I want to be careful not to fall into that trap because, like I said, I'm a defender of traditional values. I'm a defender of the traditional Greek state and Greek culture and things like that. And I'm afraid that I'm going to be maligned and I'm going to be accused of being someone that I'm not. Which is something that I don't really have control over. I can watch my words so much, but they will play this sort of guilt by association game, like, oh, well, you talked with this person, and this person's evil, so you're evil. And I don't want that to happen. So I'd say that's probably the thing. I have unlimited confidence in myself and in my own character, and I'm happy with the kind of person I am. But it doesn't take much for somebody to try and pull you down, to try and malign you, to try and speak ill of you, to slander you. So yeah, it's a risky game that I'm playing, and also it's a risky game that you're playing too. You don't shy away from controversy. You're willing to say what you think, even if it offends people. And you know what? People will take your words and they'll twist it and they'll make you into the boogeyman. And I'm sure you've experienced that probably to a greater degree than I ever have. And that is unfortunate because you're a nice guy. I like you. Yeah.
I believe that this is part of greatness and there is no way to avoid it. And I understood that when I was 18 years old, when I first started, before 10 years, started taking the content that I do. And back then, I realized that there is no way to avoid this hate. So I was like, okay, I will get hate for sure. So let's go guns out. Let's do it.
Yeah, well, that's
100%. Because if I get a little bit hate, it's gonna affect me. Let's get all of it to get over with it.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, that's a good mindset to have, frankly, because there's a lot of people who are, I wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't prepared for it. I wouldn't be appearing on this podcast. I wouldn't be putting videos online if I wasn't prepared that people would disagree, and if I wasn't prepared that people would try to bring me down. So I'm totally prepared for that. I just hope that it doesn't come at the cost of like my family, because it's one thing to hate me, but it's so easy for people to push that hatred out towards people that you're close with, and I definitely don't want that to happen either.
My honest advice on that, for me, I screwed everyone, like in my family. Wherever I walk, there is fire behind. It's like I'm the devil. I spread disaster everywhere. There is no way to avoid this as well. Like my family gets a lot of scrutiny because of what I do. A lot of scrutiny, a lot of hate, and they cannot handle it like me, unfortunately, because they are exact opposite of me. They want to have a peaceful life and people to not talk about them. But unfortunately, they gave birth to me.
Yeah.
So if you want to flirt with greatness, you must sacrifice everything on your path. After listening to this podcast, what is one concrete lesson a young listener should take from your beliefs, from your life's philosophy?
Remember who you are. Take your identity seriously, because it's not a given. Who you are, what language you speak, what religion you are. These things are not just abstract, aspects of you. You weren't just like born. It's not like there's a magic vending machine of souls and you could have been born in India and you could have been born in China and you just happen to be born in Greece. No, like you are Greek because your parents are Greek. You're Greek Orthodox because our great-grandparents fought and died that we're able to practice our religion freely in this country. You are who you are because of the sacrifices of the people before you. Do not take that for granted. It is not, and take it from me as someone who lived in a foreign country, who wasn't taught the language from birth, who had to fight, who had to really work hard to try and be taken seriously, and also to understand my own culture. Be blessed and understand that you're blessed that is something that you grew up around, but take it seriously, because it's if you don't, who will? And there's a reason why we have it today. It's like I said, it's because of the sacrifices of the people who came before us, the people who fought and bled and died for this country. We need to respect them, and each person has not only the opportunity but the duty and the responsibility to preserve our culture, to preserve our faith, to preserve our way of life for the people who come after us.
Where can people find the future Greek Prime Minister? Where can people find you?
I would say our biggest is Instagram, so I'd recommend everyone look us up on Instagram. If you look up Kinema Ethnos or To Kinema to Ethnos, we're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Substack. We also have our own proprietary website, which has a lot of our cultural initiatives, which we aren't displaying online. So if you're someone who's interested in looking at those sorts of things, like the actual political work we're doing, it's mostly available on there.
It was my honor to have you here.
It was my pleasure. Really, thank you so much for having me.